Chapter 567. Yu Zigong didn't expect that the fat woman was just like her appearance, with a pig's body and a pig's brain. It was true that these people were very hateful, but this fat woman was even more hateful. She had such a powerful husband, yet she still spent money to seduce him. Wasn't this just harming him? Get out of my way. Yu Zigong dashed to the fat woman and pushed her to the side. An incredulous expression appeared on the fat woman's face. She never dreamed that it was Yu Zigong who pushed her. Shouldn't the two of them be on the same side at this time? Yu Zigong, are you out of your mind? It's fine if they bully me, but you actually help them bully me. After the fat woman reacted, she grabbed Yu Zigong's arm and blocked the door with her fat body, not letting Yu Zigong leave no matter what. Yu Zigong angrily shouted, "Get the hell out of my way, you idiot!" The fat woman flew into a rage and cursed, "Yu Zigong, you bitch! This old lady is helping you, yet you dare to turn around and curse me? I'll fight you!" Slap. Yu Zigong raised his hand and slapped the fat woman's face, angrily cursing, "Wake up, bitch! What's our relationship? If you tell this to your husband, will he come to support you? Or will he come and kill us both?" "My husband will naturally come to support us, The fat woman roared. Halfway through her roaring, she suddenly realized something and swallowed the rest of the words back into her stomach. That's right. She spent money to keep a gigolo outside. If her husband knew about it, he would definitely kill her. No, she must never contact her husband. The fat woman panicked and quickly released Yu Zigong. With a nervous face, she said, Yes, you're right. I was so angry just now that I became muddle-headed. Let's go." "Wait." Tan Xiao blocked the two and sneered. "You wanna go? I think you're dreaming, aren't you? Didn't you just scold me to your heart's content? Also, your cuckold husband, the deputy director of the Public Security Bureau. Can't he help you deal with me? Call him here, else you won't be able to leave this place." "Yes, we can't let them go." The woman who had just been slapped had already finished her call. She quickly ran to Tan Xiao's side and stopped Yu Zigong and the fat woman with Tan Xiao. The other customers also came to their senses and quickly blocked the exit of the shop. They all looked at the two of them with gloating expressions. The plump woman panicked even more. Yu Zigong's complexion was a bit pale and his eyes seemed to be able to spurt out flames as he stared at Tan Xiao and said in a deep voice, "Brother, we were in the wrong just now, but one must always leave some leeway so that we can meet again later. Let us leave. Let's just treat this as a misunderstanding." Tan Xiao didn't intend to make things difficult for them. He was just angry that the woman's words were too harsh. Moreover, this was a women's underwear store. He really didn't want to stay any longer. These days, there were too many people who wanted to have sex after eating their fill. He couldn't be bothered to care whether others were having an affair or not. Make this woman apologize. Tan Xiao pointed to the fat woman and said. Yu Zigong quickly pulled the fat woman and scolded. "What are you waiting for? Apologize to her." The fat woman wished that she could find a hole to burrow into at this moment. She was still arrogant and domineering just now and didn't put these people in her eyes. But in the blink of an eye, she had to apologize to them. This kind of grievance almost drove her crazy. However, compared to her husband knowing that she kept a gigolo outside, she suddenly felt that apologizing was nothing. I'm sorry." Tan Xiao coldly snorted and said, "Apologize to everyone, including the woman you just slapped." The woman who had just been slapped directly waved her hand and said, "I don't need her to apologize. I don't care if she's having an affair or if her husband has some ability. This matter is not over yet." Tan Xiao shot a deep look at the woman. After a moment of silence, he looked at the pale Chen Xiaowan and sighed inwardly. "What about you? Will you stay? Or do you want to leave?" Chen Xiaowan didn't dare to look at Tan Xiao. Even when Tan Xiao asked her, her eyes were a bit evasive. After hesitating for a moment, she whispered, "She was slapped because she helped me. I can't leave." "You're still as stubborn as ever." Tan Xiao snorted coldly and continued, "Give me your cell phone." Chen Xiaowan hesitated for a moment before she shook her head and said, "I don't have one." Tan Xiao was furious inwardly and said, "It's fine if you don't want to tell me. Come to the everlasting feast hall. And find me if you encounter any trouble later. They will contact me. Having said that, he turned around and walked out of the restaurant. Hu Qingsong was stunned. He looked at Chen Xiaowan, who lowered her head and didn't speak, and then looked at Tan Xiu, who directly left. A strange expression appeared in his eyes. He seemed to smell something unusual between the two of them. After chasing after them, he asked in a low voice while carrying the bag, "Big Bro Tang, do you know that Chen Xiaowan before?" Tan Xiu nodded lightly and didn't speak. Hu Qingsong looked at Tan Xiu's indifferent expression and had to suppress his curiosity deep inside. A few minutes later, Yu Zigong pulled the fat woman and rushed out of the Wanmao shopping plaza, while the beaten woman followed behind them. Chen Xiaowan didn't know what the woman wanted to do, so she could only follow behind her. "You don't need to follow me. I'll handle this matter." The woman suddenly stopped and looked at Chen Xiaowan. Chen Xiaowan bit her lower lip and stubbornly shook her head. "I'm the one who implicated you. If you don't want to let this go, I'll bear it with you." "Suit yourself." The woman snorted coldly. She watched Yu Zigong and the fat woman get into an Audi in the parking lot outside. She immediately took out the car key and quickly entered a nearby Porsche. Without hesitation, Chen Xiaowan opened the Porsche's front seat door and quickly sat inside. On the nearby street, Tan Xiu had been observing the outside of the Wanmao shopping plaza. Upon seeing the people who just had a conflict come out, he turned to look at Hu Qingsong in the front seat and said, "Would you like to take a taxi and go back first?" "Do you need my help?" asked Hu Qingsong after a moment of hesitation. "No need." Tan Xiu shook his head. "All right, then I'll go back first." Hu Qingsong nodded. "Call me promptly if anything happens. I'll rush there as fast as I can." "All right," replied Tan Xiu. His eyes then fell on the two cars that had already entered the road. After starting the car, he tailed the two cars all the way. Tan Xiu didn't expect that he would meet Chen Xiaowan today. He didn't even recognize her at first. If it weren't for him feeling that she looked familiar and thinking about it for a long time, it would have been very difficult for him to see her again in this lifetime. She was an acquaintance. He used to be very familiar with her. She was also the first woman who tempted Tan Xiu. When he was in junior high school, she was his cousin, Sujinen's classmate and good sister. Not only did she help him a lot when he was in Star City, but she also bought a lot of things for Tan Xiu when she went back to the Su family village with Sujinen. Tan Xiu still remembered that many of his firsts were caused by this woman. The first time an outsider gave him pocket money, it was Chen Xiaowan, who was 5 or 6 years older than him. The first time someone organized a birthday party for him, it was also Chen Xiaowan. The first time he saw a woman bathing naked, it was also Chen Xiaowan. However, that accident made Chen Xiaowan hate him very much. She misunderstood that he deliberately peeked at her. Later on, he came to the immortal world by a freak combination of factors. He also had a small wish to see Chen Xiaowan again and explain it to her. If it weren't for that accident, I'm afraid I would have a big sister to love me now. Compared to Chen Xiaowan, who isn't related by blood, Sujinin is just too lacking. Tan Xiu felt a bit regretful inside. Hongkou District, at the intersection of Zhongqiang Road. 2 SUVs violently rushed out and drove side by side with Yu Zigong's Audi. One of the SUVs directly hit the front of the Audi. As the Audi suddenly shifted, it was knocked over by the SUV behind it. After a simple stop, the 2 slightly damaged SUVs quickly left. The Porsche behind them stopped at the roadside. The woman in the driver's seat turned to look at the dumbfounded Chen Xiaowan, who was caught unprepared by the unforeseen event in front. She lightly smiled and said, "You're Miss Chen, right? You're very good. At the very least, you're a responsible woman. Now that the resentment in my heart has been vented, you can go." "Ah." Chen Xiaowan was still in a daze. The woman raised her brows and said, "I mean you can get off now." Chen Xiaowan got off the car in a daze. As the Porsche disappeared at the end of the road in the distance, she seemed to wake up from a dream. Heavens! The 2 SUVs that just hit and overturned Yu Zigong's Audi were called by that woman? Who the hell was she? She turned out to be murder? Standing on the roadside, Chen Xiaowan took out her mobile with mixed feelings. She wanted to call an ambulance, But the thought of saving the man she hated made her unable to press the dial button. Creak. Tan Xiao parked the car next to Chen Xiaowan and indifferently looked at the overturned Audi on the roadside. After getting off the car, he directly grabbed Chen Xiaowan's wrist, opened the front seat, and pushed her inside. What are you doing?" shouted Chen Xiaowan angrily when she saw Tan Xiao sitting in the driver's seat. She watched him start the car and drive forward. A forced smile appeared on Tan Xiao's face as he said, "It's been a few years, Sis Xiaowan. Can't you listen to my explanation about the matter at that time?" Chen Xiaowan fell into silence. She was indeed very angry with Tan Xiao back then. But the real reason why she avoided Tan Xiao was not entirely because of that matter, but because of Sujanan's attitude. Had it not been for the big quarrel she had with Sujanan on Tan Xiao's birthday, she would probably still have regarded Tan Xiao as her younger brother. What a pity. It was a pity that Tan Xiao was Sujanan's younger brother, not hers, even though she liked the sensible, well-behaved, kind-hearted and gentle Tan Xiao. Chapter 568. As the Deputy Director of the Municipal Public Security Bureau, Feng Kong, who held real power, had never imagined that one day he would be cuckolded by his wife, who was as fat as a pig. What's more, he didn't expect that this matter would be exposed in public. So much so that the 6 or 7 police officers he brought with him looked at him with strange eyes. "Pa!" Feng Kong was furious and slapped the woman's face and angrily shouted, "Shut the hell up! Talk nonsense again, and I'll arrest you for slandering others." The woman who was slapped covered her cheek and shouted, "Heavens! The police hit someone. His wife keeps a gigolo and made him wear a green hat, and then he got into a car accident here. I told him the truth, yet he got angry out of shame and slapped me. Is there still any law in this country? Everyone, please be the judge. How can the police hit someone?" Feng Kong was furious and slapped her, but he immediately regretted it. No matter what, he was the deputy chief of the City Public Security Bureau, and shouldn't have hit someone in public. Sure enough, the crowd in the surroundings immediately stirred up. Everyone looked dissatisfied, and many of them even stood up to criticize Feng Kang's profiteering methods. Among them, some people were arranged by those with ulterior motives to fan the flames in the crowd, arousing the anger of the surrounding people. Sitting in the car, Tan Xiao watched the unforeseen event in front of him. He turned his head to look at Chen Xiaowan and praised, "That woman is really ruthless. She arranged all kinds of links to each other. I'm afraid that it's not only Yu Zigong and that fat woman who will be out of luck this time, but even the deputy chief of the Public Security Bureau will be implicated." "Could it be that the policeman who hit her is that fat woman's husband?" asked Chen Xiaowan in a low voice. "That should be the case," said Tan Xiao with a light smile. "Else, why would the people from the Public Security Bureau come to the scene instead of the traffic police? Also, the woman who announced that his wife was having an affair was obviously arranged by someone else. But that policeman actually hit her with a furious expression on his face. This situation can only mean that he's the unlucky cuckold man." Chen Xiaowan nodded and suddenly turned to look at Tan Xiao with a bit of embarrassment. She then said in a low voice, "Can you please not say the word cuckold again? I also seem to have one on my head." Cough cough. Chen Xiaowan's words made Tan Xiao choke. He was at a loss whether he had to cry or laugh as he looked at her. Then he forced a smile and said, "It's all in the past, Sis Xiaowan. Don't take it to heart. Just treat it as if you've been bitten by a pet dog you like very much. Just kick it away." Pet dog. Chen Xiaowan was stunned when she heard this, and then a smile appeared on her beautiful face. Next to the ambulance, Feng Kong was facing the accusations from countless onlookers. He wanted to figure out the truth thoroughly. He grabbed the woman and said in a deep voice, "I apologize for my behavior just now, but you must also take responsibility for your words. How can you prove that the two of them have a shady relationship?" The woman said angrily, "How? Do I still need to prove it?" Dozens of people had seen what they did at the Corinne Gilson lingerie store in the Wan Trade Shopping Center. If you don't believe me, you can go to Corinne Gilson and investigate. Feng Kong let go of the woman, turned his head and shouted, "Li Hu, go to the Wan Trade Shopping Center and investigate what she said. I'll follow you to the hospital and wait for your news there." "Affirmative." The young policeman replied and quickly left with the two. As the ambulance left, the accident investigation team arrived and towed the overturned off-road vehicle away. Only then did the surrounding onlookers slowly disperse. Tanxiu drove the car and followed the ambulance to the Shanghai hospital. When he parked in the hospital's parking lot, his expression suddenly moved and said, "Sis Xiaowan, do you want to solve this big problem of Yu Zigong once and for all?" "How?" Qin Xiaowan was confused. "Transfer 100,000 yuan to Yu Zigong's account now," said Tanxiu with a light smile. So many people heard his threat in Corinne Gilson. This can also be regarded as extortion and blackmail. I have a way to make him spend 8 to 10 years in prison because of this 100,000 yuan. Qin Xiaowan looked at Tanxiu with a dumbfounded expression. After a long while, she bitterly shook her head and said, "Forget it. He has already received the punishment he deserves. If it's too hard on him." Tanxiu sighed inwardly. He somewhat regretted his proposal just now. Qin Xiaowan was sometimes very tough on the surface, but she had a very kind heart and soft-heartedness was her biggest characteristic. In this aspect, she was actually comparable to his mother, Su Lingyun. Since you don't have the heart to do it, then forget it. Let's wait here. I'm sure the news will come out soon. All right. More than an hour later, Tanxiu used his spiritual sense to monitor the situation and found that the policeman sent by Feng Kong to the Wan Trade Shopping Center had returned. After reporting the investigation at the operating room's door, Feng Kong flew into a rage and kicked open the operating room's door. He rushed in and beat Yu Zigong, who was receiving treatment. Even 4 or 5 doctors couldn't stop him. Finally, he picked up a scalpel and fiercely cut Feng Kang's lower body. Castrated? Tanxiu was dumbfounded, and a strange emotion rippled inside him. Qin Xiaowan was a bit dazed, so she didn't see the change in Tanxiu's expression. It didn't take long for Tanxiu to call her to get off the car and walk toward the building not far away. Then, the voices of many people passed into their ears. It's really strange. A policeman actually beat a wounded patient who is really receiving surgery. According to the news, the police officer castrated the other party for some reason. He became a living eunuch? Yeah, he really became a living eunuch. I heard the scene was very tragic. Qin Xiaowan's footsteps halted, and she turned to look at Tanxiu. Although Tanxiu could clearly observe it with his spiritual sense, he couldn't expose the problem of his spiritual sense. Therefore, he deliberately showed a surprised expression and whispered, "It can't be true, right?" Qin Xiaowan was silent for a while before she suddenly pulled Tanxiu's arm. A satisfied smile appeared on her beautiful face as she said, "I don't want to hear or watch the rest of the story. Let's go." Tanxiu let out a faint smile and said, "Let's go have a meal." The duo no longer stayed and wasted time. After leaving the hospital, they rushed to the Everlasting Feast Hall. On the way, Tanxiu made a phone call and asked someone to pay attention to the situation in the hospital. At the Everlasting Feast Hall, Qinan had been living a comfortable life recently. She learned from Tanxiu in advance that she could obtain a lot of precious medicinal herbs and could exchange them for a lot of cultivation resources at the HQ in Jingmen Island. Therefore, it only took her half a month to spend all her money to buy precious medicinal herbs, thus becoming the first batch of members to exchange for a lot of medicinal pills. As a result, her cultivation speed had advanced by leaps and bounds, and she was just a step away from breaking through to the foundation establishment stage. Furthermore, as a reward, the Everlasting Feast Hall's HQ in Jingmen Island rewarded her with some medicinal pills, which made her more satisfied. At present, the only regret she had was that she had no money and was very poor. Where can I get some money? Qinan thought for a while, and then decided to take the time to play underground car racing. It was her strong point, and it wouldn't be a problem for her to make money to exchange for cultivation resources. Just as she lazily leaned on the window on the second floor, she suddenly saw the figure of her boss, Tanxiu, appear at the restaurant's entrance, accompanied by a beautiful woman. Boss's luck with women is really heaven-defying. The thought flashed in Qinan's mind as she strode outside the office. In just a minute or two, she appeared in front of Tanxiu. "Hello, boss." "Qinan, apply for a VIP card for my sister," Tanxiu said with a faint smile. Qinan stared blankly for a moment before she respectfully said with a smile. Boss, the identity of this VIP is... Sis Xiaowan, follow Qinan to apply for a VIP card. Tan Xiao said with a smile. I'll order the dishes downstairs and wait for you to come back. You're the Everlasting Feast Hall's boss, Tan Xiao? Chen Xiaowan was surprised. That's right, Tan Xiao said with a smile. Chen Xiaowan was somewhat shocked inwardly. As a senior executive of a large foreign company, she had once visited the Everlasting Feast Hall for a meal. She naturally knew that the Everlasting Feast Hall was the most high-end restaurant in Shanghai. Even an ordinary meal here would probably cost thousands of yuan. Despite having a good annual income, she didn't dare to eat here often. She only came here a few times with the company's leaders. She couldn't figure out how Tan Xiao became the Everlasting Feast Hall's boss. It was because the Everlasting Feast Hall had been operating in Shanghai for many years, and Tan Xiao should only be a junior high student at that time, right? A few minutes later, after Chen Xiaowan followed Qinan to apply for a VIP card, they came to a good table on the first floor. She then sat opposite to Tan Xiao and asked about the confusion in her heart. Tan Xiao didn't want to tell her the reason, so he casually made up a reason and smoothly brushed it off. During the meal, the two talked a lot, such as how they had been living in the past few years. Of course, it was mainly Chen Xiaowan who spoke, while Tan Xiao was a good listener. However, the Japanese company where Chen Xiaowan worked slightly surprised Tan Xiao, because he had heard of it. Alright, let's not talk about me first. Let's talk about you. Didn't you say that you started your business before the college entrance test? What kind of business is it? Asked Chen Xiaowan with a smile. Sister Xiaowan, you should have heard of the magnificent Tang Corporation, right? Asked Tan Xiao. Of course I have. Chen Xiaowan nodded and smilingly said, the magnificent Tang Corporation is a company with limitless potential in the country. The cosmetics produced by this company are simply women's favorite. Unfortunately, the sales volume is limited. I only bought it once and spent more than 2 months' salary. Suddenly, her smile froze on her face, and her eyes were filled with disbelief. Chapter 569. Tan Xiao smiled and said, if you like the skincare lotion, Sis Xiaowan, I'll send some to you later. Chen Xiaowan nearly jumped up from her chair and looked at Tan Xiao with a surprised expression. She suddenly felt as though she was dreaming. She once thought that she would never meet Tan Xiao again in this life. Never did she expect that there seemed to be a thread in the dark that pulled the two of them to meet again. It was once. Tan Xiao's life was very bitter. She liked that sensible and well-behaved boy, so she treated him as a younger brother. But she never expected that he would make such a name for himself in just 4 or 5 years. It was the magnificent Tang Corporation. It was a dark horse in the business world with an unstoppable momentum. Tan Xiao, you're not lying to me, are you? Asked Chen Xiaowan with a trembling voice. Do you think I'm the kind of person who likes to brag, Sis Xiaowan? Tan Xiao shrugged his shoulders and chuckled. Chen Xiaowan hesitated for a moment before shaking her head. You don't look like it. But it's too shocking. How did you do it? Just do it seriously, said Tan Xiao with a smile. Chen Xiaowan snappily rolled her eyes at him and resentfully said, I originally thought that after I graduated from college, I not only came to Shanghai, but I also found a job in a foreign company of a large international group. I also worked hard to climb up to the management level of the company, earning a good income and living a very comfortable life. I'm already considered very successful, but compared to you, I'm just worlds apart. Tan Xiao couldn't help laughing and said, don't compare. It's fine as long as you think you're successful. You're just like those children born with a golden spoon in their mouths. They may have hundreds of millions of wealth the moment they landed on this earth. Chen Xiaowan felt relieved and said with a smile, what you said makes sense, but I'm really shocked by your achievements. I'll treat you today. You must treat me to a good meal some other day. Do you think you can treat me today, Sis Xiaowan? Tan Xiao forced a wry smile. Huh? Chen Xiaowan stared blankly for a moment before recalling that the owner of the Everlasting Feast Hall was Tan Xiao. Even if she rushed to pay the bill, the cashier wouldn't dare to accept it. Alright. It's your treat today. I'll treat you another day. Chen Xiaowan gave Tan Xiao a defeated look. She didn't have any other thoughts because of Tan Xiao's identity. In her eyes, although Tan Xiao had grown up, he was still the boy who used to be very sensible and obedient and called her sister. Tan Xiao asked curiously, Sister Xiaowan, you said you work for a Japanese company. What's the name of the company? What kind of business do you do? Brisk Trading Group, a retail company, said Chen Xiaowan with a smile. Tan Xiao noted down the name of the company, and then accompanied Chen Xiaowan to have a meal. He then drove her back to her residence, Shanghai's Jingning District, Bishan Lake District. Chen Xiaowan originally wanted to invite Tan Xiao upstairs, but Tan Xiao found an excuse to refuse. After driving away from Bishan Lake District, he received a call from a member of the Everlasting Feast Hall, informing him about what happened in Shanghai Hospital and Feng Kang's fate. You mean, Feng Kang has been suspended by the Public Security Bureau for investigation? Tan Xiao asked while driving while wearing a Bluetooth headset. That's right. What he did was too bad, and seriously affected the reputation of the public security system. Therefore, his superiors ordered him to be suspended, and an investigation team has been sent to investigate him. A low and deep voice came from the phone. I see. Tan Xiao hung up the phone with a bitter smile on his face. Speaking of which, Feng Kang could be considered as having 8 lifetimes of bad luck. He originally held a steady position in the Municipal Public Security Bureau, and was considered as a person with real power. Never did he expect that his fat and ugly wife would actually cheat on him, and make him a cuckold. It was fine if he was made a cuckold, but he lost his mind out of anger, and even castrated Yu Zigong in the hospital's operating room. Tan Xiao thought for a while, and then dialed his family's patriarch's number. Ha ha ha, how come you suddenly remembered to call me, Xiao? I just mentioned you to your third grandpa. Tang Guosheng's hearty laughter came from the phone. Grandpa, our Tang family has safely passed through the crisis, and the Yao family, the biggest threat to us, has fallen. Are you in a good mood? Tan Xiao said with a smile. Indeed. Tang Guosheng laughed. Since you're in a good mood, can you do me a favor? I want to protect someone, said Tan Xiao. Tang Guosheng was surprised. Protect someone? Ooh, what's his identity? Tang Guosheng was surprised. Tan Xiao told him about Feng Kang's matter and finally said, Grandpa, I want to work in Shanghai. If I have someone in the Public Security Bureau, it will be very convenient for me to handle a lot of things in the future. Feng Kang is facing a great disaster now. If I help him at this time, I'll definitely be able to smoothly make him work for me. Tang Guosheng pondered for a moment and said, No problem. I'll immediately use my connections. All his troubles will be solved by tomorrow afternoon at the latest. No hurry, said Tan Xiao. It's best to wait for 2 days. Tang Guosheng stared blankly and instantly understood Tan Xiao's meaning. Feng Kang was now in a crisis. If he helped him solve it immediately, he was afraid that he wouldn't be grateful. But if he helped him when he was at the end of his rope and suffering from mental torture, he would definitely be grateful, and would be better used by his grandson in the future. I understand. Then let him enjoy it for 2 days. Conxiao Villa Complex in Shanghai. Jia was in a good mood today. Although she was slapped by a crazy woman when she was shopping in the mall, everything she did was to vent the anger in her heart. Daughter, what are you giggling about? Pungang sat on the sofa in the living room with his legs crossed, reading a financial magazine in his hand. He suddenly noticed that his daughter, who was sitting in front of him, was giggling like a fool, so he immediately asked with a smile. It's nothing. I just cleaned up a mad dog today, so I'm in a good mood. Jia held back her laughter. Dad, you should have heard of the Deputy Chief of the Public Security Bureau, Feng Kang, right? Pungang stared blankly for a moment before he nodded and said, I know him. He's a deputy chief with a promising future. I heard that he's old ways old subordinate. Maybe he can be promoted to a permanent position next year. He'll never be able to be promoted to a permanent position. Jia giggled. I used a trick today to pull him down from his high horse. I just got the news that he's been suspended for investigation. Pungang suddenly straightened up and asked in surprise, What happened? Jia recounted what happened today and finally said, He can only blame that shameless wife of his. She's arrogant and domineering. Look at my face, the palm print still hasn't completely disappeared. Anai Pengong's brows deeply furrowed as he nodded and said, since you've cleaned them up, then let this matter be settled. But it's a pity that some of Old Wei's arrangements will be affected. Dad, I don't care about Uncle Wei's affairs, said Anijia proudly. You once taught me that I won't offend people if they don't offend me, but I'll pay them back tenfold if they offend me. Feng Kang's wife hit me, so I'll pay her back. But that woman called Chun Shaowan is pretty good. I like her very much. Since you like her, then poach her to help you manage your business. Anai Pengang laughed. I hope she has the ability. All right. Anijia giggled. At Blue Star Villa Complex. After Tan Xiao came back, he was pleasantly surprised to see Dai Xinyue. She originally planned to come to Shanghai after the National Day holiday. But something happened at home, so it was delayed for a month. Have you solved the problem at home? Asked Tan Xiao while looking at Dai Xinyue, who was obediently staying beside Kong Xia. Yeah, it's all done, said Dai Xinyue with a smile. You can find a room on the first floor and live here from now on, said Tan Xiao. Also, I may be busy a lot, so you can read and study by yourself when I'm not here. I'll teach you some things when I have time. If your medical skills progress fast during the New Year's Day, I'll take you to a hospital for your internship. Dai Xinyue's eyes lit up and respectfully said, I'll listen to your arrangement, master. Tan Xiao turned to look at Kong Xia and asked, have you had dinner? What's your plan for tonight? Yeah, I've had dinner, said Kong Xia. Xinyue and I are going to go shopping. She has been to Shanghai before, but she didn't have a chance to stroll around. All right, you can go now, said Tan Xiao. I'm going out for a while, and I'm afraid I'll be back very late. Where are you going? Asked Kong Xia. There's an old acquaintance in Hong Kong who sent me a batch of things, said Tan Xiao. I need to meet him and talk about something. Upon hearing it, Kong Xia nodded and said, then go and busy yourself. We'll go out later. Tan Xiao returned to the study room on the second floor. He subconsciously wanted to release the fierce beast he had subdued to feed it. But when he came to the corner and saw that the array had been removed, he suddenly remembered that he had thrown the fierce beast to resting Cemetery Island a few days ago. I'll be busy. After taking a shower, Tan Xiao returned to the study room and began to draw the plans of Clam Island and resting Cemetery Island. In particular, he needed to design the plan of Clam Island's herb planting area. After all, the medicinal properties of the herbs were different, so he must think clearly in advance about which area to plant which herbs. Before he could finish drawing half of the Clam Island's plan, Tan Xiao received a call and learned that the medicinal herbs sent by Li Jiren had left the highway and were now heading toward the Everlasting Feast Hall. He was full of expectations for the medicinal herbs sent by Li Jiren. After returning to the Everlasting Feast Hall, Tan Xiao had just chatted with Qi Nan for a while when a container truck arrived at the Everlasting Feast Hall, escorted by 4 off-road vehicles. Under the guidance of the Everlasting Feast Hall's staff, the 5 vehicles drove into the Everlasting Feast Hall's backyard. Hello, Mr. Tang. Our boss asked me to give you the medicinal herbs. All of them are now in the truck. This is a list of all the medicinal herbs. Please have a look. A refined middle-aged man recognized Tan Xiao at first glance. Tan Xiao took the list. After reading it, a satisfied smile appeared on his handsome face as he said, leave the container truck here. Find a hotel to stay in, and come here early tomorrow morning to drive the truck away. Chapter 570. As the 4 SUVs left, Tan Xiao asked Qi Nan to drive away all the staff in the backyard, and ordered that no one was allowed to come in. Only then did he personally open the door of the container truck. Inside the container truck, there were a total of 88 black suitcases, each of which was filled with medicinal herbs. According to the 2 prescriptions Tan Xiao had given before, there were a total of 88 kinds of precious medicinal herbs. Tan Xiao opened the suitcases one by one, checking the medicinal properties and age of the medicinal herbs before storing them into his interspatial ring one by one. After storing all the suitcases into his interspatial ring, a bit of regret appeared on his face. Li Jiren had sent his men to collect all the precious medicinal herbs needed to refine the marrow cleansing pill, and could definitely refine hundreds of marrow-cleansing pills. Although he had almost collected all the precious medicinal herbs needed to refine the Essence Longevity Pill, he only found the 500-year-old Polygonum multiflorum among the 3 most important medicinal herbs. The Millennium Snow Lotus and the Flying Guillotine were nowhere to be found. According to the proportion of medicinal herbs needed to refine the Essence Longevity Pill, these medicinal herbs sent by Li Juren can at least refine hundreds of Essence Longevity Pills. Unfortunately, without the Millennium Snow Lotus and the Flying Guillotine, it will be very difficult to refine the Essence Longevity Pill. Tan Xiao suppressed the regret at the bottom of his heart. He knew that one must not be greedy. It was already a very big harvest to be able to get the medicinal herbs needed to refine the Marrow Cleansing Pill and the Essence Longevity Pill. The Millennium Snow Lotus and the Flying Guillotine were medicinal herbs that could only be found by chance but not sought. Tan Xiao had obtained the Millennium Snow Lotus before, but it had been used by Ji Qimei to refine the pill. Haste makes waste. Tan Xiao understood this truth. After closing the container truck's door, he turned to look at Qi Nan at the side, and found that she was looking at him with a somewhat different expression. If you can reach a satisfactory level, you will also have your own interspatial ring in the future. Alright, I still have other things to do, so I'll go back first. After saying that, Tan Xiao drove the car away from the everlasting feast hall. Qi Nan quietly watched the car leave, her heart filled with anticipation. She wanted to have a lot of cultivation resources, which was more like having her own interspatial ring. She was very clear about one thing. If she had an interspatial ring, it would be much more convenient no matter where she went and what she did in the future. The first task is to get money. Qi Nan clenched her fists, her eyes filled with determination. It was midnight. When Tan Xiao returned to the Blue Star Villa complex, he found that Kong Xia hadn't rested yet. She was quietly sitting on the bed, looking at the financial statements. The sales of the newly launched health products had achieved very good results. The return of the funds also made the magnificent Tang Corp's financial situation more prosperous. However, Kong Xia knew that Tan Xiao had a big plan, especially the internal purchase of real estate in Star City's new city, as well as the establishment of the headquarters building, factory construction, equipment configuration, and so on before moving to Shanghai. There were a lot of things that needed to be spent. Still awake? Tan Xiao asked with a smile after taking off his coat and hanging it up. Kong Xia closed the financial statement and chuckled. I'll be waiting for you to come back. I'm going back to Star City tomorrow since there are still a lot of things waiting for me to deal with in the company. Have you booked the plane tickets? Asked Tan Xiao. I'll take you to the airport tomorrow. I've booked it. Although Kong Xia was reluctant in her heart, she still said in a soft voice. That night, both of them were crazy as they hugged each other and slept. The next morning, Tan Xiao sent Kong Xia to Shanghai Airport. After she left, on the way back to Blue Star Villa Complex, Tan Xiao received a call from Yang Le. Originally, he took Yang Le to Jingmen Island because he needed him to do something. But because it was solved easily and the Tang family had put in a lot of effort, Yang Le became idle instead. After he went to the imperial capital, Yang Le stayed in Jingmen Island for a while before returning to Shanghai with Han Qinggu. After returning home, just as Tan Xiao entered the hall, he saw Yang Lu and Dai Xinyue staring at each other. He let out a faint smile and said, You two should already know each other, right? No, I don't. Dai Xinyue and Yang Lu replied in unison. Immediately after, they fiercely glared at each other and turned their faces to the side at the same time. Tan Xiao was startled and didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he said, What's wrong? Did you two have a misunderstanding? Dai Xinyue got up and said, Master, this guy is a rogue. Yang Lu also hurriedly got up and angrily said, Don't listen to this girl's nonsense, Tan Xiao. It's a misunderstanding. Who knows she's in the toilet? I came here because I was in a hurry, so Tan Xiao instantly understood and said with a smile, All right. Since it's a misunderstanding, let's just talk about it. Yang Lu, you called me and said you have a very important matter to discuss with me. What's the specific matter? Yang Lu pointed to Dai Xinyue and said, Brother Tan Xiao, I don't trust this girl. Tell her to leave. Tan Xiao stared blankly. Dai Xingyue snappily glared at Yang Lu and disdainfully said, "Who wants to hear it? Master, I'll go out with Auntie Zhang to buy groceries. Do you have anything you need to buy? I'll bring it back for you." "No." Tan Xiu shook his head. As Dai Xingyue and the nanny Zhang Xinlan left, Yang Lu came to Tan Xiu's side and whispered, "My eldest senior brother has returned to China and is now in Shanghai." "Yao Qinglong?" asked Tan Xiu with furrowed brows. "Yes, it's him." Yang Lu nodded. "I just got a message from him, saying that he has come to Shanghai and wants to meet me. The Yao family in the imperial capital is almost finished. Those who were lucky enough to escape the calamity have left the imperial capital in a hurry and are hiding through various means," said Tan Xiu. "Yao Qinglong has returned to China at this time, but he didn't appear in the imperial capital and instead came to Shanghai. What does he want to do?" Yang Lu shook his head and said, "I'm also curious, so I didn't refuse him after he contacted me. Instead, I came to you to discuss it with you. I have a feeling that it's not a good thing for him to suddenly look for me." Tan Xiu thought for a moment and seriously said, "Go see him and figure out his purpose for looking for you. I remember you once said that Yao Qinglong is very ambitious and has been operating abroad all year round. Nobody knows how much power he has now. I may not be afraid of him, but I'm also afraid of trouble. He's a dangerous factor, so I must do everything I can to get rid of him." Yang Lu hesitated for a moment and whispered, If he really wants to be the enemy of your Tang family, can you promise me one thing?" "Say it," replied Tan Xiu calmly. "No matter what, he's still my eldest senior brother," said Yang Lu. "Can you spare his life at the last moment?" asked Yang Lu calmly. "It's not impossible to spare his life, but I have many means at my disposal," said Tan Xiu. "Do you think it's better to spare his life and let him become a living dead? Or to let him die early and reincarnate early?" Yang Lu was silent for a moment. Finally he nodded and said, "Just pretend I didn't say anything. I'll help you figure out his purpose for returning to China, but you can solve the problem between you two. I'm going abroad tomorrow, and I'm afraid it'll be some time before I come back." "All right." Tan Xiu nodded. He was well aware of Yang Li's character. Being sandwiched between him and his eldest senior brother would be very difficult for him. The reason why he had to go abroad was probably to avoid the suspicion. At noon, Yang Lu met his eldest senior brother, Yao Qinglong, in a coffee shop. To his surprise, not only was Yao Qinglong not pained because of the Yao family's problem, but he looked like a spring breeze and smiled at him. "What are you looking for me for?" Yang Lu sat on the opposite sofa, still with that cynical look on his face. "What do you want to drink?" asked Yao Qinglong with a smile. "I can see that whatever you drink doesn't taste right." Yang Lu waved his hand. "Spit it out if you have something to say. Don't waste my time." Yao Qinglong seemed to have long been accustomed to Yang Li's attitude. He lightly smiled and said, "Junior brother, though master has passed away, we're after all martial brothers. Even if I'm not looking for you to reminisce about the old days, shouldn't I?" Yang Lu contemptuously said, "You're too cunning, and your utilitarian heart is too heavy. I'm afraid that I can't avoid you. Are you going to say it or not? If you don't want to say it, then I'm leaving." "Forget it. I've experienced your bad temper many times," said Yao Qinglong. "All right, then I'll talk to you about something serious. I need you to help me with a deal. I'll give you a 100 million commission after it's done." 100 million? That's a big deal. Yang Lu looked surprised and his eyes kept lingering on Yao Qinglong. "It's indeed a big deal," said Yao Qinglong. "Some people have paid a high price to buy the formulas of several products of the Magnificent Tang Corporation, and there have been many people who have set their eyes on the Magnificent Tang Corporation, but all of them have failed. I accepted this deal, so I came to Shanghai directly to find you after returning to the country. Also, second brother and third brother have agreed and are now on the way to Shanghai." The Magnificent Tang Corporation? Yang Lu secretly sighed inwardly. He had some contempt and sympathy for Yao Qinglong. He despised the fact that the Yao family had been ruined and the members of the Yao family were now in a precarious situation. Yet Yao Qinglong turned a deaf ear to them and didn't care about their kinship. What he sympathized with was that his target was the magnificent Tang Corporation. Others might not know the ins and outs of the magnificent Tang Corporation, but he was perfectly clear about it. With Tan Xiu's fearsome means and those inhuman fellows of the everlasting feast hall, even if Yao Qinglong was a disciple of the thief sect, he wouldn't be able to achieve what he wanted. Yang Lu was silent for a long while before he slowly said, I have a question. You're a member of the Yao family in the imperial capital, right? According to the news I heard recently, the Yao family is very miserable now. They have fallen from the clouds and many of them are now in danger. As a member of the Yao family, you don't seem to care about it, do you? Yao Qinglong squinted his eyes and a murderous intent flashed in them. He then indifferently said, This enmity must be avenged. But do you think I have any chance of winning if I act now? I understand what you mean. You think I'm cold-hearted, don't you? Humph. It's never too late for a gentleman to take revenge 10 years later. If you rush to take revenge before you have enough foundation, it's like hitting a stone with an egg. Not only will you not be able to take revenge, but you'll also throw yourself into it. Today's update is completed. Seeking monthly and recommendation votes for support. Chapter 571. Yang Lu agreed with Yao Qinglong's words, but he was well aware of one thing. Yao Qinglong wanting to take revenge on Tan Xiu was absolutely courting his own death. However, in the past he still had some feelings for Yao Qinglong, but ever since his master died, Yao Qinglong and the others treated him unscrupulously, even wanting to take his life. In the end he managed to escape. From then on, there was no longer any feelings left for him. Yao Qinglong, surely you haven't forgotten what I told you before, right? We're no longer martial brothers. You're free to do whatever you want, and it has nothing to do with me anymore. If there's nothing else, I won't accompany you anymore. Having said that, he got up from the sofa and was about to leave. Yao Qinglong let out a faint smile and said, Junior brother, it seems that the wealth master gave you before his death is much more than I imagined. Even 100 million can't move you now? Yang Li's expression abruptly changed as he angrily said, The things left by master were obtained by me with my own ability. You're not as good as him, so don't think about those things anymore. Yao Qinglong put on an indifferent expression and lightly said, That old geezer must have calculated that we can't get it. So he left behind that kind of instruction, didn't he? Humph. Since he's dead, then his things should be taken out and divided equally. Of course, if you help me get the formula of the magnificent Tang Corporation's products, I'll never mention the things left by master ever again. I'll also compensate second brother and third brother, so that they can give up thinking about those things. How about it? Dream on. Yang Lu angrily yelled. I, Yang Lu, am afraid of everything, but I'm not afraid of being threatened. Considering that we're martial brothers, I can let bygones be bygones for plotting against me. But if you dare to oppose me again, don't blame me for being ruthless. Yao Qinglong couldn't help laughing and said, What are you talking about, junior brother? How could your senior brother plot against you? I'm sincerely inviting you to help me. Even if you really don't want to, I won't force you. That's right, if you have something to do, you can go first. If second and third come, we'll go straight to the Blue Star Villa complex to have a drink with you. Yang Lu clenched his fists and a murderous intent flashed in his eyes. Since Yao Qinglong knew where he lived, it meant that they had investigated him. He was threatening him. If he didn't help them, they would most likely attack him. Yao Qinglong smiled and said, Junior brother, it seems that you don't welcome us to your place as guests. If you don't welcome me, I think you should sit down and continue talking with me. Maybe you'll change your mind later. I won't change my mind, said Yang Lu coldly. Of course, I also welcome you to my place as guests. I just hope you don't die. Finished. When Yao Qinglong's smile froze, he turned around and walked out of the cafe. Bang! Yao Qinglong slammed his palm on the table and watched Yang Li's disappearing figure. His heart was filled with murderous intent. Since you don't know the difference between life and death, then I'll let you suffer a bit. I hope that in the face of death, you can still persist. Japan, the top of Mount Fuji. Kawako was hugging her katana and sitting cross-legged under a cherry tree. She was wearing a black exercise suit, and allowed the drizzle to wet the ends of her hair. Wuxia ghostly figure silently appeared in front of her and knelt on one knee. The woman with a lock of white hair on her forehead respectfully said, "Young master, I've obtained the item and it's on its way here. It should arrive tomorrow morning at the latest." Kawako abruptly opened her eyes with a pleasantly surprised look flashing in them. Then she said with satisfaction, "They did a good job. That thing isn't of much use to me, but all right. Tell them not to leave any traces." "Understood." The woman in ninja attire replied. Her body twisted and disappeared again. A smile finally appeared on Kawako's face as she said, "Hanako, help me book a plane ticket to Magic City in China. Also, inform my father that I'm going to China to continue discussing the cooperation with the magnificent Tang Corporation." "Understood." A voice came from behind the tree, but it immediately returned to normal. Shanghai Blue Star Villa Complex. After Yangla came back, he noticed that someone had been following him, so he didn't directly go to Tan Xiu's place. After returning to Villa number 11, he walked to the bedroom window and looked outside before dialing Tan Xiu's number. "You're back?" Tan Xiu's voice came out of the phone. "Tan Xiu, I need your help," said Yangla. "Speak. What is it?" asked Tan Xiu. "What is it?" Tang Xiu asked. "Yao Qinglong, Du Yanghe, and Qiu Jian are probably going to attack me tonight. If they make a move, I hope you can help me kill them." Tan Xiu raised his brows and asked, "Why do they want to kill you? Also, how did they know that you're staying here?" "Yao Qinglong should have sent someone to investigate my whereabouts," said Yangla. "My whereabouts in Shanghai are very hidden, but I've been staying here for a long time, so they should be able to find me with their ability. Further, I also figured out Yao Qinglong's purpose in looking for me. They want me to help them steal the formulas of several products of the magnificent Tang Corporation. I refused." "Got it." After saying that, Tan Xiu directly hung up the phone. At first, he wasn't in a hurry to deal with Yao Qinglong. Although Yao Qinglong's identity was a disciple of the thief sect, he didn't put him in his eyes. However, he actually dared to steal the formulas of several products of the magnificent Tang Corporation, which was absolutely unforgivable. Those formulas were the capital he relied on to make money. If Yao Qinglong were to steal them, his loss would be too great. There's a road to heaven, yet you refuse to take it. There's no gate to hell, yet you still want to throw yourself into it. Tan Xiu let out a sneer and began to contact Qi Nan. Although he was very strong, he was afraid that some of them would slip through the net if the other party sent too many people. Therefore, he needed the experts of the Everlasting Feast Hall to lay out an inescapable net. Even if the other party sent a large number of experts, they would not be able to return. At the previous coffee shop, Yao Qinglong had never left. He sat alone on the sofa and quietly sipped his coffee while thinking about something in silence. The reason why he returned to China and even rushed to Shanghai was not because he didn't care about the Yao family's current situation, but because he didn't want to expose himself. The Yao family was very important, but that was the former Yao family, the Yao family that could bring him benefits. The current Yao family was like stray dogs, and the entire family's foundation was eroded by others little by little. He had learned from the intelligence that perhaps it wouldn't be long before the Yao family would no longer exist in the imperial capital. However, all of this was not important to him. What was important was the formulas of the magnificent Tang Corporation's products. He came back this time with an arduous task. "Senior brother. Senior brother." Two voices came from a distance as Du Yanghe and Qiu Jian came before Yao Qinglong with smiles on their faces. Although the three of them each had their own ulterior motives, they seemed to get along well with each other on the surface. Yao Qinglong got up and hugged them. He pointed to the sofa in front of him and asked them to sit down. Then he said with a smile, "You two came really fast." "Senior brother, we naturally rushed here since you summoned us," said Du Yanghe with a smile. "What about that brat Yangla? Didn't you say that you would see him in advance?" "That brat doesn't want to be with us, so he directly left." Yao Qinglong sneered. "I think he refuses a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit," Du Yanghe angrily said. "Senior brother, as long as you tell me, I'll kill him today. All the wealth master left for us has been taken by that brat. We didn't kill him last time, so I haven't vented my anger yet. Let's go find him. If he doesn't take out the wealth left by master, we'll kill him, said Qiujian coldly. I don't believe that he would rather keep the money and disregard his own life. Don't worry, said Yao Qinglong with a smile. It's daytime now, so it's not suitable for us to act. I've sent some people to investigate his whereabouts, and have also sent some people to track him. I believe that he won't be able to get rid of my informants even if he wants to escape now. First, let me tell you the main purpose of coming here. I need to get the formulas of several products developed by the magnificent Tang Corporation. If you can help me get them, I'll give each of you 100 million yuan. Du Yonghe and Qiujian looked at each other, and both of them revealed shocked expressions. They were shocked not because they wanted to steal the formulas of the magnificent Tang Corporation's products, but because of the reward promised by Yao Qinglong. 100 million yuan? Even if both of them were disciples of the thief sect and had good skills, as well as their own businesses, their total wealth was probably less than 100 million yuan. Senior brother, that's a big deal, Du Yonghe exclaimed. It's indeed a big deal, but the buyer is willing to pay 400 million yuan, said Yao Qinglong with a smile. I originally planned to give 100 million yuan to each of us 4 brothers, but that brat Yonglu refused me. It must be because master left him a lot of wealth, said Du Yonghe angrily. Else, it's impossible for him to not be tempted by 100 million yuan. Senior brother, we must kill Yonglu and get the wealth left by master. At that time, I'll give you 40%, while third brother and I will take 30% each. Yao Qinglong secretly sneered inwardly, yet a satisfied smile appeared on his face as he said, Since you agree to this distribution, then I won't be polite. However, if Yonglu is willing to help me steal the formulas of those products from the magnificent Tang Corporation first, we can't act before we steal the formulas. We'll kill him after we get the formulas. No problem. Du Yonghe and Qiujian seemed to be able to see the huge wealth waving at them as they nodded with satisfaction. They had long coveted the wealth left by their master. Unfortunately, their strength was not as good as Yang Li's, so they didn't even get to see the shadow of a penny. As long as they could kill Yang Lu and get the wealth, they were perfectly aware that even 30% was not more than the reward promised by Yao Qinglong. Some of the readers are shouting in the book review section for 100 monthly votes and a chapter update. Since everyone has such a wish, how can the kind and hardworking Silent Knight not fulfill everyone's wish? The latest chapter is ready. Where are the monthly tickets? Chapter 572. Time flew by and night fell in the blink of an eye. As usual, the Blue Star Villa complex was brightly illuminated by the street lamps, and the fragrance of the soil drifted amidst the drizzle. Yonglu stayed in Villa number 11, quietly hiding in the corner of the attic on the roof, constantly observing the surroundings with the binoculars in his hand. Occasionally, he would also observe the Villa number 9 next door. They're coming. A cold light flashed in Yang Li's eyes. He grabbed the silver pistol in his left hand and aimed its black muzzle at several figures approaching Villa number 11. Although Tan Xiu didn't promise to help him when he contacted Tan Xiu on the phone, he was confident that Tan Xiu would help him. As a matter of fact, the reason why he didn't leave directly was that he used himself as bait to catch a few big fishes for Tan Xiu and get rid of some big troubles for himself. Inside Villa number 9, Tan Xiu quietly stood by the window of his study room, watching the scene outside through the gap of the curtains. When a few ghostly figures silently appeared outside the Villa number 11's courtyard wall, he dialed a number and said, "The fish has taken the bait." At this moment, even Yang Lu himself knew that 2 experts of the Everlasting Feast Hall had been waiting in his bedroom for a long time. They were fiddling with daggers with bloodthirsty glints flashing in their eyes. There were also 8 experts of the Everlasting Feast Hall hiding in other rooms of the villa. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. A group of martial artists with extraordinary skills easily climbed over the wall. As more than a dozen people used various means to sneak into the villa, 3 figures appeared in the distance. "Junior brother, I know you're at home. We came to visit you. Don't tell me you won't open the door and invite us in?" Yao Qinglong's loud voice sounded outside the courtyard. In the corner of the attic on the roof, Yang Lu looked at the three people standing outside through the gap of the window. He was silent for a while before he came out of the attic and stood on the edge of the roof, saying, "Since the people you brought can come in, do you still need me to open the door myself?" Yao Qinglong and the other two exchanged glances. Then they easily climbed over the courtyard door and quickly appeared in the courtyard. At this moment, the originally pitch-black villa became brightly lit. 6 strong men who had snuck into the villa in advance appeared in the hall on the first floor. "Junior brother, there's no need to hide in front of us, right?" Yao Qinglong said with a faint smile. Yang Li's figure appeared at the staircase. As he walked down the stairs, his cold gaze swept past the 6 burly men before finally landing on Yao Qinglong and the other 2. After letting out a deep sigh, Yang Lu appeared in front of the trio and said, "To tell you the truth, if you didn't come tonight, perhaps I would still care about our kinship and save your lives. Unfortunately, the moment you stepped into my courtyard, the only thing that could happen between us was you die or I die." Du Yonghe sneered and said, "I say, little junior brother, who gave you the confidence to talk nonsense to us? Fight to the death. Bah. It means you die and we live." Xiao Jian coldly said, "Little junior brother, we were careless before and let you escape from us several times. But this time we've already set up an inescapable net. Even if you grow wings, you won't be able to escape. Therefore, if you don't want to die, hand over all the things left by Master before his death. Else, don't blame us for being ruthless and disregarding our kinship." Yang Lu looked at the trio and suddenly burst into laughter. "Ridiculous, really ridiculous. I suddenly have a feeling that Master's death is also related to you, right?" Ha! Yao Qinglong, Du Yonghe, and Xiao Jian's complexion slightly changed. Yang Lu was a meticulous person. He instantly felt that something was wrong when he saw the change in their expressions and shouted again, "Don't think I don't know that Master's body was originally very good. But he suddenly became seriously ill and passed away early. You 3 despicable and shameless villains. You forgot the grace of Master's teachings, and even tried to kill him. That's really treacherous and heinous." Yao Qinglong frowned and fell into silence. He looked at Yang Lu and didn't speak. Du Yonghe was a hot-tempered person. Upon hearing Yang Li's words, he directly admitted it. "Since you already know, then we won't hide it anymore. He's indeed our master, but he favors you more than the 3 of us. If we don't kill him, I'm afraid he'll leave all his treasures to you." "Second brother." Yao Qinglong's expression drastically changed and he shouted angrily. Yang Li's pupils shrunk and disbelief filled his eyes as he muttered, "I never thought that it was really you who did it." Yao Qinglong took a deep breath and strode a step toward Yang Lu. He then said in an awe-inspiring tone, "Since you've already swindled the real cause of Master's death from second brother's mouth, then we don't need to hide it anymore. That's right, it's indeed the slow-acting poison we got from the poison sect that finally killed him. Do you want to avenge that old geezer?" Yang Li's eyes turned red, and he glared at the trio with hatred. He wished he could immediately tear them apart and dismember them into pieces. Yao Qinglong shook his head and sighed. "It seems that today's matter won't end well. Yang Lu, I'll give you a chance to live. Take out all the wealth left by that old geezer. Else, tonight will be the day you die." Yang Lu bit his lips and looked at the 3 overbearing bastards. He finally looked up to the sky and roared, "Tan Xiao, help me kill them. I, Yang Lu, will be your man in the future and work for you. It's a deal." Tan Xiao's figure flickered and appeared in the hall lightning fast. Behind him, Qinan was fiddling with a sharp dagger while looking at Yao Qinglong and the others with a faint smile. Yao Qinglong's complexion greatly changed. The moment Tan Xiao appeared, he recognized Tan Xiao's true identity. He was a member of the Tang family, the culprit who ruined his Yao family. "I've been tricked." Yao Qinglong roared and dashed toward the corridor on the left. Tan Xiao didn't move, neither did Qinan behind him. Just as Yao Qinglong passed through the corridor and was about to rush into a room, a large foot directly kicked him in the chest, causing his body to fly backward. The door opposite was smashed open by his body. Humph! Inside the smashed door, an expert of the everlasting feast hall easily grabbed Yao Qinglong's neck and strode to the hall before throwing him in front of Tan Xiao. Du Yonghe and Xiao Jian were dumbfounded. They never dreamed that things would turn out like this. They were originally full of greed, and tried to kill Yang Lu to get the wealth left by their master. But they didn't expect that they would fall into a trap set by someone else instead. Who are you? Du Yanghe's horrified eyes retracted from Yao Qinglong's body as he stared at Tan Xiao and shouted. Tan Xiao shook his head with a smile and said, "You're all idiots. With Yang Li's character, why did he still stay in this villa? Don't tell me you don't know what he's relying on? Hee, who am I? Your question is very interesting, but I don't need to tell you myself. Your eldest senior brother should be able to tell you, right? Am I right? Yao Qinglong." Blood spilled from the corner of Yao Qinglong's mouth. He struggled to crawl up from the ground and glared at Tan Xiao viciously. "You're right. It's all thanks to you that my Yao family has been ruined. It's just that I didn't expect that my stupid junior brother would team up with you and set up this trap for us." "What?" Tan Xiao said with a smile. "Are you afraid?" Yao Qinglong straightened his chest and sneered. "Me? Afraid? There are only a few people in this world who can make me, Yao Qinglong, afraid. You're not one of them. I'm just curious. How did Yang Lu get involved with you?" Tan Xiao pointed to the direction next door and said, "We're neighbors." Neighbors? Yao Qinglong nearly choked to death. Although he had sent some people to investigate that Yang Lu lived in the Blue Star Villa complex, he never expected that Tan Xiao also lived here. "Aka, I need your help." Yao Qinglong grabbed his mobile and dialed a number. "You should be calling for reinforcements, right?" Tan Xiao said with a smile. "It's all right. I'll give you a lot of time to bring out all your energy. But before that, don't let these shrimp soldiers and crab generals you brought here be an eyesore." As Tan Xiao's voice faded away, 6 corpses were thrown into the hall from various places. These people were the hidden martial artists brought by Yao Qinglong's trio. Just as Yao Qinglong's trio's complexion drastically changed, Qi Nan's figure flashed and appeared in front of the 6 stalwart men. Her saber slashed down and the throats of the 6 big men were torn in an instant. Blood splashed as they fell to the ground and twitched, gradually dying. "What a strong smell of blood. I like it." A hoarse voice came from outside the hall. There was no sound of footsteps, but a thin figure appeared at the hall's entrance. He wore a black robe and had long blonde hair. His handsome face was very pale, as though he was the Grim Reaper in a horror movie. After killing the 6 people, Qi Nan had returned to Tan Xiao's side. Her eyes instantly squinted when she saw who it was. She said with a faint smile, "Grim Reaper Aka, since you like the smell of blood, then I'll let you smell your own blood later." Aka, who had a British face, looked at Qi Nan. His body suddenly trembled, and his pupils instantly shrunk after he saw Qi Nan's appearance. He almost subconsciously turned around and ran outside. "Come back!" Tan Xiao dashed outside like a lightning bolt, and appeared in front of Aka in the blink of an eye. With a round of bombardment on Aka's chest, he was directly thrown back to the hall's entrance. "What?" Yao Qinglong's body shook and disbelief burst out from his eyes. He was well aware of Aka's identity. He had spent a great deal of money to hire this expert from the organization. Yet this recognized expert in the organization was so easily defeated by Tan Xiao? Aka struggled to get up from the ground. His eyes only stayed on Tan Xiao for a moment before they finally fell on Qi Nan. He said with a face full of horror, "Sir Instructor, I didn't expect to see you here. I'm very honored to see your beauty again in this life. Today the 2nd chapter is here. You still need 20 monthly votes for the 3rd chapter. Brothers and sisters, you can do it." Chapter 573. Even if Tan Xiao's strength was extraordinary, Aka still didn't think that Tan Xiao was more terrifying than Qi Nan. In Aka's eyes, Qi Nan was a demoness who killed without batting an eyelid. She once cleaned up the Mexican drug dealers, and was one of the best among the international terrorist forces. Aka didn't expect that. The first time he came to China, he unexpectedly encountered the demonic instructor, who had trained him in the past. He didn't expect that he and the demonic instructor would stand on the opposite side. He clearly remembered what Qi Nan once said. "You may be my students now, but if we become enemies in the future, I will use more ruthless and cruel means to make you regret being my enemy." Aka was restless and a bit of hatred toward Yao Qinglong. He could have provoked anyone, but he had to provoke the demonic instructor. Wasn't this just dragging him down? Qinan lightly said. Aka, it's been 4 or 5 years since we last met, right? I didn't expect you to become someone's running dog. Furthermore, you've become my enemy. Aka's expression changed as he panicked and said, Sir Instructor, I think you misunderstood. Yao Qinglong and I are only in an employer-employee relationship. He gave a lot of money to the organization, so the organization sent me to help him. If I knew you were here, I wouldn't have dared to come even if I had all the money in Citibank. Tan Xiao frowned as he looked at Qi Nan and lightly asked, Do you know each other? Qi Nan put away her cold arrogance and respectfully said, Boss, he used to be a student I trained. He's an outstanding assassin of the Arabian Black Base. However, I don't know which organization he belongs to now. Tan Xiao nodded and looked at Aka, asking, Tell me the name of your organization. Aka's lips squirmed a few times as he shook his head and said, I can't say it. Else I'll die a miserable death. Tan Xiao indifferently said, You'll die a more miserable death if you don't say it. Don't try your luck. I'm a doctor, and I'm known as a divine doctor in China. I have a way to make you suffer incomparable pain and suffering and still survive. Say it. Otherwise, you'll have to endure the pain and torture every night. Aka's expression changed. Even though Tan Xiao's English was very bad, he still understood what Tan Xiao meant. He had also heard of the godly doctor from China. It was a very magical type of doctor. He was in awe of doctors because there was a killer doctor in the organization. He had the ability to save people and kill people. He was definitely a terrifying existence who used torture. Aka shook his head bitterly and said, I can't say. Otherwise, the whole family will be implicated. Tang Xiao squinted his eyes and a few silver needles appeared in his hand out of thin air. His figure flickered and pierced the needles into Du Yanghe and Qiu Jian's bodies before he flashed back to his previous position. Never in their wildest dreams did Du Yanghe and Qiu Jian expect that Aka's refusal would lead to them being attacked by Tang Xiao. What pained them the most was that the silver needles pierced their bodies, causing an indescribable pain to erupt inside them. Their bodies fell to the ground in just a few seconds. Every muscle in their bodies was convulsing and their bodies were distorted. Blue veins and blood vessels protruded all over their bodies as they convulsed and rolled on the ground. Tan Xiao ignored them for the time being, and even ignored Aka. He looked at Yao Qinglong and said with a smile, I don't think I need to tell you what will happen to you next, right? Since I have the ability to kill your Yao family's patriarch and destroy your family, it means that my strength is very terrifying, far beyond your imagination. So I want to know everything about you, including the businesses you do abroad, the wealth you have, the organization you joined, and so on. Of course, if you tell me honestly and pay a big price, I can guarantee that you'll live. Yao Qinglong looked at his 2 junior brothers on the ground, who were howling in pain like wild beasts. A chill instantly spread all over his body. Tan Xiao's threat to Aka just now was actually a threat to him. He was perfectly aware of the divine doctor's ability, and he was even more aware that the divine doctor of China was even more terrifying than those international Western medicine experts and professors. Can you really guarantee my safety? Yao Qinglong deeply looked at Tan Xiao and then at Qi Nan and Aka. Finally, he asked with a deathly ashen face. Of course, but it depends on your performance. Tan Xiao nodded and said, I'm not an executioner, and I don't like killing people. Else, none of your Yao family's clansmen will be alive now. All right, I'll tell you everything. I just hope you can keep your promise, said Yao Qinglong in a deep voice. Aka's expression greatly changed and he angrily shouted, Yao Qinglong, have you forgotten the organization's doctrine? You'll die a very, very miserable death if you tell others. Yao Qinglong shook his head and said, I know I'll die a very miserable death if I tell you, but if I don't tell you now, I'm afraid I'll die even more miserably. Aka, Tan Xiao is very terrifying. He's definitely the most terrifying person I've ever met. He can make your instructor his subordinate. Don't tell me you haven't realized this? Aka gasped for a few times and fell into silence. Afterward, Yao Qinglong told him in detail that he received an order from the Yao family's patriarch, Yao Qingzuan, to manage his business abroad more than a decade ago. The Yao family operated a variety of businesses abroad and invested a lot of money. After more than a decade of development and Yao Qinglong's ruthlessness, he secretly occupied the businesses of several families. Eventually, his total assets had reached tens of billions of dollars. Later on, with the help of the Stygian Club, he trained a large number of people abroad and secretly devoured the wealth of a lot of rich and powerful people. He also destroyed many small families and tycoons, and took a lot of money for himself. The power he possessed was only slightly worse than the Yao family in the imperial capital. The Stygian Club was an organization with 3 major forces as its core and 12 families as its combined force. It also had more than 40 affiliated forces. Nowadays, the power possessed by the Stygian Club was definitely among the top 3 in the world. Additionally, the Stygian Club had dozens of teams such as an assassin department, intelligence department, regulatory department, mercenary team, security team, financial team, and so on. There were countless talents inside. Aka was a member of the assassin department, and his rank was only in the hundreds. After listening to Yao Qinglong's story, everyone in the room was shocked. Even Tan Xiu looked solemn, faintly feeling the terror of the Stygian Club. Who's the most powerful person in the Stygian Club? Tan Xiu found that Yao Qinglong didn't mention this point, so he immediately asked in a deep voice. I don't know. Yao Qinglong shook his head. Tan Xiu looked at Aka and indifferently asked, Can you tell me? I won't tell you even if I know, said Aka. But I really don't know. Nobody knows who the Stygian Club's leader is, unless it's the top members of the 3 major forces and the 12 families. Yao Qinglong, I won't ask any more since you don't know. Tan Xiu nodded. What I want to know is why you came back to China. And why are you targeting the magnificent Tang Corporation? Are you the one who wants the magnificent Tang Corporation's product formulas? Or is it the Stygian Club's people who want those formulas? It's Ing Daofu, the Moya family's patriarch. He's also one of the 12 family's powerful figures. Yao Qinglong seemed to be ready to throw caution to the wind. Tang Xiu nodded and said, Kill the rest except for Yao Qinglong. Immediately, the Everlasting Feast Hall's experts instantly moved and easily killed Aka, Du Yanghe and Qiu Jian. Yao Qinglong secretly felt lucky inwardly. He found that his choice was right. He knew that Tan Xiu was ruthless and ruthless, so he cooperated and told everything. Even if he concealed some things, he firmly believed that everything he said would have a very important effect on Tan Xiu. Yao Qinglong, I found that you're the only wonderful person in your Yao family, said Tan Xiu with a smile. I promised you that I wouldn't kill you, but I didn't say that my men won't kill you. But I think you're a good man, so I'll give you a chance to live. The worry inside Yao Qinglong's heart finally vanished along with Tan Xiu's words. He knew that he would have to pay a huge price, but he wouldn't hesitate even if he had to sacrifice everything in order to survive. Hence he seriously said, Mr. Tang, please tell me. Transfer all the wealth you control to my name, said Tan Xiu. I'll send someone to follow you abroad to take over everything you have. You should be aware that the more you have, the more threat you'll be to me. So it's up to you. Yao Qinglong was silent for a moment before he slowly said, I'll make a phone call first and ask my men to transfer all my savings in the Swiss bank to your name. Also, transfer all the liquid funds of several large companies I control to you. The rest of the industries will be handed over to your men later. A wise man submits to circumstances. Tan Xiu gave a thumbs up and praised. You're very good, Qinan. I'll leave this matter to you. I'll contact Xiaoxua later and ask her to send some men to you. Understood. Qinan's eyes lit up and she immediately replied excitedly. This was Tan Xiu delegating power to her, and it was a great authority. She knew that if she could handle this matter well, her status in the Everlasting Feast Hall would be greatly improved. At the very least, she would be on par with Hao Lei and Tianli. Do you agree to my solution? Tan Xiu looked at Yang Lu and asked. Yang Lu wanted Yao Qinglong to die, because Yao Qinglong would always be a problem for him. However, since Tan Xiu wanted Yao Qinglong's wealth, it would be very difficult for him to kill Yao Qinglong. Although he was somewhat dissatisfied, he still nodded silently. All right, I believe Yao Qinglong won't bother you anymore in the future, said Tan Xiao. Am I right, Yao Qinglong? I promise that I'll avoid Yang Lu even if I see him in the future, said Yao Qinglong quickly. Tan Xiao nodded with satisfaction. Then an undetectable voice entered Yang Li's ears. Since you want to go abroad, I think it's a good choice to go with Qi Nan to have fun. After everything is settled smoothly, you can deal with Yao Qinglong as you want. Brothers and sisters, you're too awesome. Today's third update. Chapter 574. Tan Xiao didn't expect that he would be able to solve the threat of Yao Qinglong due to an accident. At the same time, he also learned some very secretive things. He had long been aware of the existence of the Stygian Club. There were huge forces in this world, such as the one who had attacked his father. He had already sent some people to investigate the existence of the Stygian Club, and believed that he would soon get the specific information. Wealth and armed forces. What Tan Xiao needed to consider the most at present, aside from his own cultivation advancement, were these two things. He needed to accumulate wealth continuously, and use it to develop the armed forces, train a large number of elite martial artists, and have more power to speak in this world. Inside the villa, Tan Xiao put away all his thoughts and gave medical advice to Dai Xinyue before returning to the bedroom on the second floor. Yang Lu had already left and secretly followed Qi Nan. Qi Nan had also taken Yao Qinglong away, and was ready to secretly take him abroad to receive his wealth. Tan Xiao wasn't the kind of person who would keep his words, and there were times when he would go back on his words. However, he was dealing with the enemy at this time, and his words were worth 1,000 gold to his own people. The next day, just as Tan Xiao arrived at the campus, he was stopped by Mu Weining at the campus gate. Mu Weining had obviously put on some light makeup today, and her beauty was out of this world. Can you skip class today, boyfriend? Mu Weining said with a faint smile on her face. Tan Xiao couldn't help laughing and said, I'm a good student and never have the habit of skipping classes. However, it's rare for my girlfriend to ask, so it's not impossible if you have a good reason. Puffed. Mu Weining covered her mouth and chuckled. My business has been developing well recently and I've made some money. So I'm going to buy a house outside and stay in Shanghai after I graduate. You want to stay in Shanghai? Tan Xiao was surprised. Why? To avoid disputes and troubles, said Mu Weining. You mean your family? Tan Xiao asked thoughtfully. The smile on Mu Weining's face faded, and a bit of helplessness appeared in her bright eyes. She nodded and said, My family may not be as big as your Tang family, but we're not as united as your family. If it wasn't for my grandfather, the family would have long been torn apart. Recently, my grandfather's health hasn't been very good. Although there's nothing serious, my uncles have started to get restless. I'm staying in Shanghai alone to develop my career. It's also to leave a way out for myself in the future. You're right about that. Tan Xiao nodded and said, It's necessary to avoid it as early as possible since we're not going to fight for power and wealth. Let's go. I'll accompany you to see the house. Mu Weining smiled, but there were some things in her heart that she didn't say. She decided to stay in Charm City to develop, not only because of her family's dispute, but also because of Tan Xiao. She knew very well that Tan Xiao would probably not settle down in Shanghai in the future. At the very least, he would have to stay in Shanghai for the next 4 years. She was a woman who found it hard to fall in love, but once she did, it would be hard for her to restrain herself and she would be dead set on a man. Even though she knew that with Tan Xiao's ability, he would never be able to have only one woman in the future. But if she wanted to fight for her own happiness, then she must take the initiative. At the very least, she had to let Tan Xiao have a place for her in his heart. Today, Tan Xiao didn't drive but walked to the campus instead. Therefore, the duo strolled back to the Blue Star Villa complex and came to the front of the villa's garage. This is the Koenigsegg? As the electric door slowly opened, Mu Weining, who was standing outside, saw the luxury sports car parked outside. Tan Xiao blinked and suddenly recalled that his aunt Tang Min had called him when he went to Jingmen Island some time ago. She said that there was a good foreign luxury sports car, so she ordered it for him, and even delivered it to the Blue Star Villa complex. He had been driving the Land Rover Range Rover since he came back, and it was parked directly in the courtyard. He had never opened the garage, so he had never seen this sports car. He didn't know much about luxury cars, so he didn't even know the name of this sports car. Mu Weining didn't wait for Tan Xiu's reply, and hurriedly ran to the front of the sports car. She found that it was stained with some dust, so she personally found a towel and a basin of water, and wiped it with all seriousness. It didn't take long for the new sports car to appear in front of the duo. Tan Xiu had been watching Mu Weining busying herself. Finally, after Mu Weining threw the towel into the basin, he said with a smile, "Since you like this car, then let's drive it out for a stroll today. It shouldn't be a problem to show off once in a while." "That's great." Mu Weining giggled. "I've only seen the appearance and introduction of this car in car magazines before, but I've never seen the real thing. Is this car very famous?" Tan Xiu curiously asked. Mu Weining looked at Tan Xiu with a strange expression and said, "The name Koenigsegg isn't a household name in the supercar industry, and its fame can't be compared to Ferrari and Bugatti. But this Swedish company's Agera R sports car is equipped with a twin-turbocharged V8 engine with a maximum output of 1,124 horsepower and a top speed of 440 kilometers per hour. What's more frightening is that it only takes 2.8 seconds to accelerate from 0 to 100 kilometers per hour, and only 11.7 seconds to reach a terrifying speed of 300 kilometers per hour. Do you know how much its selling price is?" "How much?" asked Tan Xiu with a blank expression. 10 million, said Mu Weining seriously. Despite having a lot of money, Tan Xiu was still taken aback by the 10 million figure. He never expected that his aunt Tang Min would spend so much. The total value of the 4 cars before was more than 10 million, and now the price of this car was more than 10 million. This was she asking him to squander? "How is it?" Mu Weining smiled. "Big Boss Tang, are you also shocked by this number?" Tan Xiu shook his head and said, "It's not that I'm shocked. I just feel that it's a bit extravagant. After all, it's very difficult for an ordinary person to earn 10 million in their lifetime. Yet this car costs so much. It's really strange," said Mu Weining curiously. "You don't seem to know your own car." "I went to Jingmen Island a few days ago," said Tan Xiu with a forced smile. "My aunt called me and said that she had booked a car for me abroad. She had already given me 4 cars, and I thought that she just casually ordered one, so I didn't take it seriously. I've been driving that Land Rover ever since I came back. It was because Chinan drove that car last night, so I opened the garage door for the first time after I came back. Who would have thought that it turned out to be such a luxurious sports car?" "Your aunt really dotes on you too much," exclaimed Mu Weining. "Anyways, let's go, boyfriend. Drive this car and take me out for a stroll." "How about you drive it?" asked Tan Xiu hesitantly. Mu Weining thought for a moment and said with a smile, "Then I'll drive it. This luxurious sports car must be awesome to drive." 2 minutes later, Mu Weining drove the Agera sports car out of the Blue Star Villa complex's gate. Just the journey to the villa attracted a lot of attention. The several security guards on duty stood straight and saluted more vigorously than before. A nice car and a beautiful woman. Suddenly, Tang Xiu had a feeling that he seemed to have turned into a second-generation hedonistic son of a rich family with luxurious cars and beautiful women. If he were to hold a glass of red wine and smoke a cigarette, wouldn't that be the life of a celestial being? "Weining, do you want to go for a drink after we're done looking at the house? I seem to have passed by several good bars with a good atmosphere," said Tan Xiu with a smile. "Sure," said Mu Weining with a shallow smile. "Where are we going to look at the house?" asked Tan Xiu with a faint smile. "Have you investigated it before?" "I've checked it on the internet. I'm quite optimistic about the Lauren Villa complex," said Mu Weining. "But the location of the villa is a bit far. It's more than an hour's drive from my company, and that's if there's no traffic jam. The Century Classic Villa complex is good, but it's not a standalone villa. I like that kind of standalone villa, preferably one with a private swimming pool." Tan Xiu hesitated for a moment and said, "Then let's both go and have a look. We'll decide which one we like in the end." "All right." Mu Weining nodded with a smile. The Adrar sports car was like a super attractive magnet as it drove on the street, attracting the attention of many people. Many of them looked envious and jealous, fantasizing that they could own such a cool and handsome luxury supercar one day. At the Lauren Villa complex, Han Jintong was comfortably sitting on the balcony of the villa building, basking in the sun and smoking a cigarette. Having lived to his age, he had already accepted a lot of things. Therefore, apart from cultivating every day, he enjoyed the rest of his life. It could be said that he lived the most comfortable life among the residents in the entire villa complex. Of course, his popularity was also the best. It would be even more perfect if second brother and his family of 3 came back from abroad. Han Jintong squinted his eyes and looked at the scenery of the villa complex in the distance. However, he was slightly surprised when a luxury sports car slowly drove into the villa complex. Because he would bask in the sun here every day on a sunny day, and recently, he had seen more than half of the luxury cars in the villa complex. But he was sure that he had never seen this very handsome sports car. Which family's prodigal kid got a new car again? Han Jintong sighed. His eyes followed the car, until it stopped in front of the property management building 200 or 300 meters away. Because he could see the parking lot in front of the property management building from where he stood. When the luxury sports car stopped and a man and a woman got out of the car, his expression changed and he let out a soft cry of surprise. Tan Xiao? Han Jintong admitted that he was old, but he would never admit that he was presbyopic. He clearly recognized that the handsome young man was Tan Xiao. He was very afraid of Tan Xiao's identity and wanted to establish some friendship with Tan Xiao. It was a pity that his precious granddaughter was Tan Xiao's teacher, and there seemed to be some unhappiness between the two. Otherwise, he would have hoped that his granddaughter, Han Qinggu, could become Tan Xiao's girlfriend, and it would be best if she could become his wife in the future. Today's first update, the monthly votes have exploded. The game continues. Chapter 575. As a black car parked next to the Adrar sports car, a young and beautiful girl got off the driver's seat. Although this girl's beauty was not worth mentioning compared to Mu Weining's, she was still a goddess in the eyes of many boys. Her name was Li Jing, the sales lady of the Roland Villa complex. Li Jing's recent performance was very poor due to some unspoken rules in the real estate market, which she really didn't want to accept. The manager even said that if she couldn't sell a house this month, she would directly pack up and leave. Therefore, although she was very impatient, she also looked forward to the stars and the moon, hoping that a rich customer would visit her. It would be best if the customer was a woman. However, today, she was thinking about something at the entrance of the sales center when she saw a handsome man and a beautiful woman coming, so she directly greeted them. She was looking forward to it because the man and woman in front of her, be it their clothes or the luxury sports car they drove, looked like rich people. Mr. Tang, Miss Mu, there are only 4 villas left in our Roland Villa complex. I've already introduced 3 of them to you in the sales center. You're not satisfied with 3 of them, so I'll take you directly to the number 9 villa. Please come with me. It's very close to here. Tan Xiao and Mu Weining nodded slightly, and followed Li Jing on foot for a minute or two before they arrived at the number 9 villa. It was a European-style villa with a total of 3 floors and a large area. The most satisfactory thing was that there were hundreds of square meters of lawn and garden in front of the door. It's very stylish. The price shouldn't be cheap, right? Asked Tan Xiao with a smile. It's indeed not cheap, said Li Jing. Due to the rapid growth of the housing prices recently, the price here has reached 145,000 yuan per square meter. The lawn and garden outside the villa are complimentary, but it's still 460 square meters. The total price is 66.7 million yuan. With my authority, I can give you a 5% discount. The transaction price is 365 million yuan. If you pay the full amount in one go, I can also help you apply for a discount of 65,000 yuan. Tan Xiao looked at Mu Weining with a questioning look in his eyes. Mu Weining nodded silently, indicating that she could accept the price. Her performance made Tan Xiao have a whole new level of respect for her, because he didn't expect Mu Weining to earn such a huge sum of money in such a short period of time. After that, the two toured the villa under Li Jing's guidance. The overall layout was very good, and there was a very spacious private swimming pool on the west side of the first floor. Nowadays, villas with indoor private swimming pools were very rare. Deal. After Mu Weining finished reading, she immediately made a decision. Li Jing's eyes revealed a pleasantly surprised look. Just as she left the villa with Tan Xiao and Mu Weining, ready to go to the sales center to handle the transaction procedures, Han Jintong, who had been waiting outside the door for a long time, stopped the three of them. Grandpa Han, you didn't sunbathe on the balcony today? Why did you come out for a stroll? Li Jing was obviously very familiar with Han Jintong as she greeted him with a smile. Han Jintong faintly smiled and slightly nodded to her before looking at Tan Xiao. A bit of respect appeared on his old face as he said, "Are you here to buy a house, Mr. Tang?" Tan Xiao didn't expect that he would meet Han Jintong here. He shook his head and said, "I'm not buying it. I'm just accompanying a friend to buy it." Han Jintong looked at Mu Weining and felt a bit regretful inwardly. He also thought that if his granddaughter worked hard, perhaps she would have a chance with Tan Xiao. But looking at Mu Weining, he knew that there was no hope for his granddaughter since she was too good-looking. Not only was her appearance, figure, and temperament not inferior to his granddaughter, but she was even better. Alas, with his identity and status, I'm afraid only such a girl can be worthy of him, right? Han Jintong sighed deeply inwardly. Grandpa Han, do you know Mr. Tang? Asked the saleslady Li Jing in surprise. Tan Xiao didn't wait for Han Jintong to answer and rushed to answer first. I've met him once, but I'm not familiar with him. Upon hearing it, Han Jintong's breath stagnated, and he immediately forced a wry smile inwardly. If it were someone else, he would have either slapped them or turned around and left. But how could he afford to offend this lord in front of him? With a bit of awkwardness on his old face, Han Jintong said, "Although I've only met Mr. Tang once, I admire him very much. Little Li, since Mr. Tang's friend wants to buy a house, you must give a discount on the price." "I'll call the manager right away," said Li Jing quickly. Tan Xiao slightly furrowed his brows as he looked at Han Jintong and asked, "Is your face very valuable?" Cough, cough. Han Jintong choked and coughed a few times upon hearing Tan Xiao's question. However, he came here eagerly to express his goodwill, so he said, "It should be worth some money. The owner of this villa complex used to be my second son's right-hand man. The house I'm living in now is my second son's house." Tan Xiao nodded. He then looked at Li Jing and said, "Don't call him. Let's sign the agreement according to the price we've agreed on. Are you all right with it, Weining?" A strange glint flashed in Mu Weining's eyes. With her intelligence, she instantly understood that Tan Xiao didn't want to accept the kindness of the old man in front of her, and even deliberately kept a distance from him. Therefore, she let out a faint smile and said, "No problem. I'll pay the full amount after signing the agreement." Li Jing looked at Tan Xiao and Han Jintong in front of her with an awkward expression. She found the manager's phone number in her phone book and didn't know whether she should press the dial button or not. Han Jintong let out a hollow laugh. He found that Tan Xiao didn't want to accept his kindness, so he immediately said, "Then let's do it according to Mr. Tang's intention. The customer is God and we must do our best to serve them. Also, I still have something to do, so I can't accompany you anymore, Mr. Tang. Goodbye." After saying that, Han Jintong left with a dejected expression. Li Jing was also a smart girl. She could clearly see that Han Jintong was obviously flattering Tan Xiao. Therefore, she secretly decided that when she met the manager, she must report this matter to him. If possible, she would strive to give more discounts to the customer. "Both of you, let's go back to the sales center." At the sales center, Feng Chong sat comfortably on the European-style sofa, crossed his legs, and looked at Hao Qian, who was standing in front of him and fawning over him. As the manager of the sales center, he had a lot of power and a lot of money, especially the sales ladies who worked here. Each and every one of them fawned on him. "Shall we have dinner together tonight, Qian Qian?" Feng Chong thought of Hao Qian's fair and tender flesh under her work uniform, and his heart was boiling hot. He was not a decent person. He had bedded several of the saleswomen in the sales center, and the beautiful Hao Qian in front of him was no exception. Hao Qian deliberately pouted and spoke with a bit of a coquettish tone. Brother Chang, it's naturally not a problem to have dinner with you tonight. However, my customer hopes that you can lower the price of Villa number 9. You see, Feng Chang slightly furrowed his brows and said, the price I gave him is already very low, yet he actually wants to lower it again. Isn't this making things difficult for me? Besides, the villas in our Lauren Villa complex are not that difficult to sell. Even if he doesn't buy it now, I'm sure there will be other customers coming to see the house in a few days. If it's really not possible, just reject it. Hao Qian was anxious. She came to Feng Chang's side and sat down. She looked around and found that no one was paying attention to their corner. She immediately raised her hand and placed it on Feng Chang's thigh. Her slender little finger even drew a circle on the inside of his thigh and said in a coquettish manner, Brother Chang, it's hard to say if other customers will come over and count it as my business. Can't you just help me out a little? At worst, I'll just wear the nurse uniform you bought last time. Really? Feng Chang's spirit shook and he quickly asked. It's absolutely true. Tonight, said Hao Qian with all seriousness. Feng Chang raised his hand to touch his chin and thought for a few seconds. Then he happily said, all right then. Call the customer to sign the agreement this afternoon. Tell him I'll only give him this afternoon. All right. Thank you, Brother Chang. Hao Qian happily glanced around. Then she hugged Feng Chang's neck and kissed his face. She then grabbed her mobile and dialed a number. She spent a minute or two to communicate with the other party and agreed to sign the purchase agreement at the sales center at 2:30 in the afternoon. 10 minutes later, Li Jing walked briskly as she led Tan Xiao and Mu Weining to the sales center. Mr. Tang, Miss Mu, please wait in the rest area. I'll make the contract and we'll sign the purchase agreement later. All right. Tan Xiao and Mu Weining were not in a hurry and came to the rest area to sit down. Li Jing busied herself for a while. After finishing the purchase agreement, she didn't immediately go to see Tan Xiao and Mu Weining. Instead, she went to find Feng Chang. She couldn't hide the excitement in her eyes as she said, Manager, my customer is going to buy our number 9 villa. I've negotiated the price with them, and now. Feng Chang waved his hand to interrupt her and lightly said, the number 9 villa has been booked. Tell your customer to choose the other 3 villas. Li Jing was dumbfounded. She stared blankly at Feng Chang as if she couldn't believe her ears. She had just checked the real estate system and found that the number 9 villa had not been booked at all. Even the deposit had not been paid. Manager, are you sure you're not mistaken? Feng Chang frowned and unhappily said, the number 9 villa has just been booked. I didn't make a mistake. The one who booked the number 9 villa is Hao Qian's customer. They'll come here this afternoon to sign the purchase agreement. All right, don't bother me anymore if there's nothing else. Li Jing quickly said, Manager, the consistent principle of our sales department is that whoever pays the money first gets the house. If the other party has paid the deposit, I'll leave immediately. But my clients have already agreed that once they sign the purchase contract, they will immediately pay the full amount. You see, today's second update. Can today's monthly votes exceed 100? Chapter 576. Feng Chang's expression slightly changed, and his eyes were filled with anger. He didn't like Li Jing. No, it was more accurate to say that he liked Li Jing very much. He once wanted to get her into his bed. Unfortunately, Li Jing didn't have a good impression of him and wouldn't agree no matter what. Therefore, he secretly instructed other saleswomen to compete for Li Jing's clients. He even gave others a lower discount than Li Jing, making Li Jing unable to negotiate a deal. Now he only gave Li Jing 2 choices. First, climb into his bed like a bitch, and second, pack up and get the hell out of here. As for selling a house, even if Li Jing's mission was up to standard, he was just teasing her. I told you that the 9th villa has been booked by someone else. The deposit will be transferred to the company's financial account later. I understand that you want to sell the house, but you can't snatch it from someone else, right? Alright, go ask your client if he wants to choose another villa. If not, then get the hell out of here. Tears overflowed from Li Jing's eyes. The grievance in her heart made her want to slap Fong Chong a few times, but her rationality told her not to do so. She couldn't lose her job and the house must be sold because she needed to make money to pay the mortgage and send money to her parents in her hometown. Suddenly, she recalled something and resisted the urge to cry, saying, "Manager, since you're willing to sell the 9th villa to someone else, then I'll forget about it. But my 2 clients are very special. Uncle Han, who lives in the 8th building, seems to know them. He's very cordial in front of them." Fong Chong slightly furrowed his brows and immediately sneered. "Are you trying to tell me that old Han's second son used to be our big boss's right-hand man, and our big boss's current achievements are inseparable from his help?" "Isn't that so?" Li Jing said. Fong Chong stood up and said with a sneer, "Li Jing, do you know why you have no achievements in our sales center? That is, you are too stupid, inflexible, and inflexible. What era are we in now? Live with that gratitude? Our boss is much more capable than Old Man Han's son back then. Do you think our boss will still give in to Old Man Han's son? Ridiculous." The glimmer of hope that just rose in Li Jing was destroyed by Fong Chong's words. She was unwilling, but she didn't know what else to say. Suddenly, she mustered up her courage and made a decision in her heart. He turned around and left. Under Fong Chong's sneering gaze, he returned to his office. It only took him a few minutes to get Chen Bin's phone number. Shanghai Grand Corporation. Chen Bin, who had a net worth of billions, was currently sitting in the reception room, receiving guests. This was a big boss that he had invited many times over. His status in Shanghai and his wealth were much greater than his. "Brother Jean, I've already expressed my intentions, and I've also clearly stated all the profits I've given out. As long as you are willing to hand over those projects to me, I promise to complete them with quality and quantity. Moreover, this doesn't affect your next big plan. It's simply the best of both worlds." Ever since Chen Bin got the news that Jin Xingkui intended to subcontract the other projects in his hands, he had been looking forward to taking over from Jin Xingkui. Jin Xingkui lightly smiled and said, "Brother Chen, we're all in the construction industry, so we know each other very well. However, more than a dozen construction companies have approached me recently, and some of them have offered much more than you. It'll be really difficult for me if you can't give me some profits." Chen Bin secretly cursed Jin Xingkui for being greedy, but he still said with a smile on his face, "Brother Jin, how about this? I'll ask my men to make a new agreement, and the conditions will definitely be better than this. Since we have time today, how about we go to the golf course and play a few rounds?" Jin Xingkui shook his head and smilingly said, "Brother Chen, you might have the leisure and elegance, but I can't. My new project has just started construction recently, and I've got all kinds of things to worry about. Let's wait for later. We'll go and play a few rounds later when we have time." Chen Bin was a bit disappointed and envious, but he had no choice since Jin Xingkui's business was booming, especially the new project, which had a huge amount of work. Once it was completed, he would be rolling in money. Ring, ring, ring. The call from an unknown number made Chen Bin swallow back the words he wanted to say. After hesitating for a moment, he apologetically looked at Jin Xingkui and answered the call. "I'm Chen Bin. What's the matter?" "Hello, boss. I'm Li Jing, a salesperson from the Lauren Villa Complex's sales center. I really shouldn't have disturbed you, but I have something very important to report to you." "Say it." Chen Bin instinctively wanted to hang up the phone when he heard Li Jing's identity. After all, he was very disgusted by this kind of action of skipping a level to contact him. However, Li Jing's last sentence made him temporarily give up the idea of hanging up the phone. Li Jing had already considered what she wanted to say in her heart. She was already holding on to her last hope. She even had the thought of throwing caution to the wind. Not only did she tell him about Fong Chong's actions, but she also told him about the customer who had come to buy the house today. Finally, she said, "Boss, Manager Fong said that you're the kind of businessman who burns bridges after crossing the river. You only chase after benefits and don't care about old friendships. That's why Grandpa Han attaches great importance to Mr. Tang. Even his words and actions are somewhat flattering. Also, those 2 guests are driving very luxurious sports cars. I just secretly checked the internet, and found that the value of that sports car is more than 10 million yuan. I think that their identities are not ordinary. Chunbin's heart was filled with anger after listening to it. This anger was not directed at Li Jing, but at Feng Chang. Outsiders might not know his relationship with the Han family, but he was very clear about it. If it weren't for Han Jintong's son back then, he would have been just a small gangster now. Therefore, even after all these years, he still remembered the other party's good deeds and even treated Han Jintong like a family member and elder. Also, what shocked him was that the other party's identity was indeed not to be underestimated, since he could drive a luxury sports car worth 10 million yuan. The water in Shanghai was very deep. Even if he had a net worth of billions, he was still treading on thin ice for fear of offending someone he couldn't afford to offend. Chunbin pondered for a moment and then asked, "Who's Mr. Tang?" "Tan Xiao," said Li Jing. Chunbin thought about it and felt that the name was somewhat familiar. It was as if he had heard it somewhere, but he couldn't remember it for a while. However, the person who could be courted by Han Jintong's grandpa Han, and even had an obvious flattering attitude, was probably not ordinary. "I see. I'll go to the villa complex later." Chunbin hung up the phone after saying that. After hesitating for a while, he looked at Jin Xingkui and asked, "Brother Jin, I want to ask you something. Have you ever heard of a young man named Tan Xiao?" Jin Xingkui stared blankly for a moment before his expression changed, and he asked in a deep voice, "If my guess is correct, I do know him. Why are you asking me about Tan Xiao, Chunbin?" Chunbin was very astute. He couldn't help but be more cautious after noticing the change in Jin Xingkui's expression and the way he addressed him. He then said, "It's like this. A staff member of the Villa Complex's sales center just reported a situation to me." He narrated the whole story with a serious expression and finally said, "I feel that the name Tang Xiao is somewhat familiar. It's like I've heard it somewhere, but I can't remember it for the time being. But Brother Jin, you're knowledgeable and have a wide network, so I want to ask you about it." A strange expression was revealed on Jin Xingkui's face. He shot a deep look at Chunbin before he got up and said, "Brother Chun, I think I'm very satisfied with the offer you gave me before. You don't need to ask your men to draw up a new proposal. We can sign the contract today. But I have a request." Chunbin was dumbfounded. He was very astute, yet he was still a bit confused and disoriented by Jin Xingkui's sudden change of topic. "Please say it," Chunbin cautiously said. "Didn't Tan Xiao want to buy the villa complex of yours?" said Jin Xingkui. "Sell it to him. And sell it to him for only 1 yuan. Chunbin instantly sucked in a cold breath after hearing it. Even if he couldn't figure it out at the moment, he also understood that Jin Xingkui had agreed to cooperate with him because of this Tan Xiao. Who the hell is this guy? Not only did he make the old man Han Jintong come to flatter him, but even a big shot like Jin Xingkui gave up a lot of benefits for him? Chunbin cautiously probed, "Brother Jin, this Mr. Tang. He has many identities, so I won't introduce them one by one," said Jin Xingkui. "But I'll tell you 2 things. First, Tan Xiao is someone I can't afford to offend. Even if there are 10 of me, I still can't afford to offend him. Second, he's my friend and also my partner. Although I'm the chief surgeon of my new city's construction project, I'm also a major shareholder." "Hiss!" Chunbin immediately gasped after hearing it. At this moment he cursed Feng Chang inwardly, wishing that he could slap him to death. Such a big shot wanted to buy a villa complex in his villa complex. Yet Feng Chang unexpectedly refused to let him in just to make things difficult for a saleswoman? "Brother Jin, I'll immediately rush to the Roland Villa complex and sell it to Mr. Tang for 1 yuan according to what you said." Jin Xingkui nodded and said, "If that's the case, then go there. It's not convenient for me to appear there, so don't mention anything between us to him. I'll wait for you at Jinda Real Estate after everything is done. I'll be waiting for you with the contract." "Brother Jin, I'll definitely handle this matter well," said Chunbin with all seriousness. "Actually, I'll do it even if you don't say it. Elder Han is my elder, so I absolutely don't dare to disobey his words." Jin Xingkui nodded with a smile, but inwardly, he admired Tan Xiao from the bottom of his heart. He had heard of Han Jintong's name. He was a very capable old man who didn't reveal his talents. His second son used to be a very powerful businessman in Shanghai. Later on, his business became very big, and he had now emigrated to a foreign country to develop his business. Chapter 577. Roland Villa Complex Real Estate Sales Center. Tan Xiao and Mu Weining were sitting in the rest area, waiting for Li Jing. But even after more than half an hour, they still didn't see her figure. Just when the two of them were surprised, Li Jing slowly came. Her hands were empty when she came back. "What happened?" asked Tan Xiao with a puzzled expression. Li Jing didn't know what her boss meant, so she wasn't sure whether her complaint would be useful or not. However, she had already packed up her things in the office. If her boss came and was not satisfied with her, she would probably be kicked out. Li Jing felt somewhat apologetic toward Tan Xiao and Mu Weining. She felt that she should have implicated them, so she said, "Mr. Tang, Miss Mu, I'm sorry to have kept you waiting. Something happened just now, so our boss is rushing here. I believe he'll be here soon. Can the two of you wait a little longer?" "Something happened?" asked Mu Weining. "What happened?" Li Jing wanted to say something but hesitated. Looking at her appearance, Tan Xiao slightly furrowed his brows and asked, "What's the name of your boss?" "Chen Bin." Li Jing secretly heaved a sigh of relief and answered, "Chen Bin?" Tan Xiao searched his memory and found that he had never heard of this name. It was obvious that he didn't know him. Perhaps the problem just now should be an internal problem of their company. As he thought up to there, he looked at Mu Weining and said, "We have nothing to do in the morning anyway, so let's wait a little longer." "All right." Mu Weining came out to buy a house because she had an ulterior motive. As long as she could be alone with Tan Xiao, it didn't matter where it was. Upon seeing that Tan Xiao and Tang Xiao were willing to wait, Li Jing immediately looked at them gratefully and personally changed their cups of tea. Then, just as he was about to go to the entrance to wait for his big boss, Feng Chong leisurely strolled over with his left hand in his pocket. His eyes swept over Mu Weining, and a stunned expression suddenly appeared on his face when he saw Mu Weining's appearance. However, he didn't dare to provoke the guests even though he had great power in this sales center. After all, those who could afford such a luxurious house worth tens of millions were not ordinary people. However, he did not dare to provoke Tan Xiao and Mu Weining, but he dared to teach Li Jing a lesson. He felt that if he could teach Li Jing a lesson in front of Mu Weining, he would be able to elevate his status. Therefore he raised his chin and said, "Li Jing, what's the situation here? Didn't you tell the client that Villa number 9 has been sold?" Li Jing opened her mouth, and her face turned pale in an instant. Feng Chong raised his eyebrows and said, "What about you? Although Villa number 9 has been sold, there are still 3 other villas that haven't been sold yet. If you don't think you're capable of providing customer service, then I'll do it myself." Tan Xiao frowned and looked at Li Jing asking, "What happened?" Li Jing found that she could no longer hide the fire in the paper, so she simply hardened her heart and said, "Mr. Tang, Miss Mu, I'm really sorry. Originally, when I introduced Villa number 9 to you, and took you to visit Villa number 9, that villa still existed. But when I brought you back to draw up the contract, he told me that someone had booked Villa number 9, and that the other party would come to pay and sign the contract in the afternoon. As a matter of fact, according to our company's regulations, the villa belongs to whoever pays first. I argued with him, but he used his manager's identity to pressure me. I'm sorry, I've tried to remedy the situation. Please wait for a while." Feng Chong never dreamed that Li Jing would turn all the spearhead against him. Was she complaining to the client? Anger surged in his chest as he fiercely glared at Li Jing and scolded, "What the hell are you talking about? Who used his manager's identity to pressure you? Li Jing, I suspect that there's something wrong with your work attitude. You're not worthy to be a staff member of our Roland Villa Complex's sales center. I hereby announce that you're fired. Go back and pack your things and then leave." Manager Fong is so awe-inspiring. An indifferent voice came from the direction of the sales center's entrance. Several men and women clustered around a middle-aged man and strode over. The middle-aged man was the one who spoke. The familiar voice made Feng Chong's expression change. When he turned his head and saw Chen Bin, his heart suddenly thumped wildly. He quickly greeted him with a smile and said, "Boss, why didn't you inform me in advance that you're coming? I could have brought some people to greet you outside." Chunbin coldly snorted with a sullen face and said, "Had I informed you in advance, I wouldn't have been able to see your lawless appearance, would I? It's not easy for the company to cultivate an excellent salesperson. Yet you fired him with just a word? You even did it in front of the client. How awe-inspiring." Feng Chang's heart turned cold. As he was about to speak, he found that the boss didn't want to listen to him anymore. He quickly walked 2 steps to the young man sitting on the sofa. "Are you Mr. Tang?" Chunbin came before Tan Xiao and respectfully asked. "Do you know me?" asked Tan Xiao in surprise. "Hello, Mr. Tang. I'm Chunbin, the chairman of the Grand Group. This is my business card," said Chunbin quickly. "Our salesperson has told me all the grievances you and this young lady have suffered here. You can rest assured that our company has clear rules and regulations. Whoever pays the money first will have the house. So you don't need to worry about the house. Also, I'd like to apologize to you and this young lady. I'll try my best to make up for the grievances you've suffered due to the management personnel of our company." "Oh, how do you want to make up for it?" A smile appeared on Tan Xiao's face. He stood up and shook hands with Chunbin. He then motioned Mu Weining to sit down and gave the seat to Chunbin. Chunbin was somewhat flattered as he sat in front of Tan Xiao and said, "Mr. Tang, I'll directly fire the management personnel of our company. I'll also inform the real estate industry that he will be blacklisted by all major real estate companies in the future. This is your company's internal matter. It has nothing to do with us," said Tan Xiao. At the side, Feng Chang's complexion changed as he hurriedly shouted, "Boss, you can't fire me. I'm the sales department manager, and I have the right to fire my employees. Also, I didn't offend these 2 clients." Chunbin abruptly turned his head and angrily shouted, "Shut the hell up." Feng Chang's breathing stagnated, and he didn't dare to speak again. Chunbin immediately changed his expression and respectfully said, "Mr. Tang, to make up for the grievances you've suffered in our company, I've decided to sell the 9th building to you for 1 yuan. What do you think?" "What?" Tan Xiao was dumbfounded and Mu Weining also had an incredulous expression on her face. 1 yuan? 1 yuan to buy a luxury villa worth more than 60 million yuan? Is this some kind of international joke? At the side, Feng Chang looked at Chunbin incredulously. He simply couldn't believe his ears. He could see that his big boss was not sick, but Wiley Jing was also shocked. She never dreamed that a simple phone call from her would cause the situation to become like this. Tan Xiao pondered for a moment and asked, "Is it because of Han Jintong?" "Only part of the reason," said Chunbin quickly. "What's the other reason?" Tan Xiao frowned. "He told me not to tell anyone about him, Mr. Tang," said Chunbin hesitantly. "You're making things difficult for me." Tan Xiao said, "There's a saying that goes, no work, no gain. We're here to buy a villa, not because we can't afford it. You won't even tell us the whole story. Do you think we can easily accept your villa?" Chunbin pondered for a moment and then helplessly said, "All right. Since you insist on asking, then I can only tell you. It's actually Brother Jean Xingkui. I just received a call from the salesperson Li Jing. Brother Jean is talking to me about something." Tan Xiao suddenly understood. He looked at Mu Weining and then nodded. "I understand. Since this is Jean Xingkui's intention, then it's settled. You don't need to stay here. You can deal with your company's affairs by yourself. We'll buy the villa and then take care of other things later." Chunbin quickly got up and said, "Please wait for a moment. I'll immediately send someone to handle the procedures for you." As everyone left, Mu Weining leaned toward Tan Xiao and held Tan Xiao's arm. She let out a faint smile and said, "Boyfriend, why do I suddenly have a feeling?" Tan Xiao stared blankly for a moment. He glanced at Mu Weining's hand that was holding his arm and asked, "What feeling?" "I'm being kept by someone," said Mu Weining with a chuckle. Cough, cough. Tan Xiao coughed twice and was at a loss whether he had to cry or laugh as he said, "Don't talk nonsense. You're a rich woman now. Do you still need someone to keep you? What happened today was just an accident." "It's just an accident, yet it saved me more than 60 million yuan," said Mu Weining with a chuckle. Boyfriend, you really have a lot of power. Tan Xiu let out a forced smile and shook his head. He was thinking about what Jin Xingkui had paid for Chunbin to sell a villa worth more than 60 million yuan. 10 minutes later, Li Jing came to Tan Xiu and Mu Weining with the purchase contract. At this moment, her attitude toward them had greatly changed. Her respect and cautiousness were proof that she was nervous inside. Quickly, after the contract was signed, Mu Weining searched for a long time but couldn't find a single yuan. Finally, Tan Xiu took out a yuan and handed it to her. He then said with a smile, "Don't be so reserved. We're not big tigers." "That's right. Have you completed the personnel changes in your company?" "It's done. Feng Chang has been fired, and I've been promoted to the position of sales manager," said Li Jing gratefully. "Thank you, Mr. Tang, Miss Mu." "You're welcome." Tan Xiu waved his hand and said, "Your professionalism is quite good. However, I don't think Feng Chang is a good person, else he wouldn't deliberately make things difficult for a girl like you." Li Jing was almost moved to tears after hearing it. She came to this big city to live. She had made some achievements by relying on her own ability, and even bought a small house with a mortgage. But she lived alone and had no one to help her in the face of difficulties. Today's encounter was the most heartwarming one she had ever had since she came to this city. "I'm really sorry. I finished writing this chapter last night. It was too late. I was so dazed that I forgot to update it on time. If it wasn't for the League's WeChat account, I wouldn't have known that I forgot to update it." Chapter 578. Tan Xiu waited for Mu Weining to sign the house purchase contract before the two of them directly left without even bidding farewell to Chunbin. Although Tan Xiu was a bit indifferent to Chunbin on the surface, he was still very grateful to him inside. On the way back, he called Jin Xingkui and thanked him. He told him that he would treat him to a drink tomorrow night, and also told him to call Chunbin. "Boyfriend, you're my idol now." Mu Weining grabbed the steering wheel, and her eyes were full of splendor as she glanced at Tan Xiu. After seeing him hang up the phone, she said with a smile. Tan Xiu couldn't help laughing and said, "You're the first beauty in the imperial capital and the first campus belle of Shanghai University. Yet you actually regard me as your idol? That's my honor." "Then do I have the honor to treat my idol to lunch?" Mu Weining said with a smile. "Of course. You saved a lot of money today, so you must treat me to a big meal." Tan Xiu nodded and said with a smile, "I've inquired about it. There's a new Paradise Manor in Shanghai recently. I heard that the dishes there are very special, and the most important thing is that the environment there is also very good. Let's go there to have a meal." "Paradise Manor?" Tan Xiu stared blankly for a moment before he immediately said with a smile, "All right. That Paradise Manor is opened by Lulu, so maybe she can give us a discount." Lulu. Ouyang Lulu. Mu Weining had seen Ouyang Lulu, so her brows slightly furrowed. "Yeah, it's her," said Tan Xiu. Mu Weining pondered for a moment before she suddenly shook her head and said, "I've decided to treat you to a different place." "Why?" Tan Xiu was surprised. "Ouyang Lulu is too familiar with you, so I'm afraid that she won't accept the money like she did today," said Mu Weining with a straight face. "I said I'll treat you to a meal, so you're going to let me spend the money for today's meal, no?" Tan Xiu listened to Mu Weining's fallacy and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Mu Weining glanced at Tan Xiu again, but she didn't speak again. She was very clear about one thing in her heart. Ouyang Lulu was Tan Xiu's confidant. Her family was a big clan in Jingmen Island, but she unexpectedly ran to Shanghai to open a restaurant. Perhaps, just like what she thought, she wanted to be closer to Tan Xiu in Shanghai. In other words, she was likely to be his competitor. In the end, Mu Weining picked a high-class restaurant in Shanghai and treated Tan Xiu to a feast. In terms of price, the two of them were even more extravagant with a 5-digit figure. Since they had classes in the afternoon, the two of them returned to Shanghai University after lunch. After agreeing to look for a renovation team together, they went their separate ways. Leisurely time always passed quickly. In the blink of an eye, Tan Xiu had been back from the capital for half a month. During this half a month, he occasionally went out to drink with Jin Xingkui, and occasionally accepted Gu Changmin and Zhang Yueming's invitation to have a small gathering with them. Even Ouyang Lulu came to him a few times and pestered him for a few days. As for the rest of the time, he would attend classes at school when he had classes and teach Dai Xinyue about traditional Chinese medicine in Blue Star Villa complex when he had no classes. Even at this time, he would cram on a lot of traditional Chinese medicine knowledge. The early morning sun was particularly bright and beautiful. After breakfast, Tan Xiao received a call from Kawako and learned that she had come to Shanghai. Tan Xiao asked her about her intentions in coming to Shanghai, but Kawako mysteriously kept him guessing. No classes on Saturday, no classes on Sunday, and no classes on Monday today. I've been staying at home for 2 days, so it's time to go out for a stroll. Tan Xiao stood on the balcony and Chen Xiaowan's appearance emerged in his mind. Since their last meeting, they hadn't seen each other in more than half a month, except for a casual chat on the phone. That's right. Sis Xiaowan seems to be working in the brisk trading group. Tan Xiao had thought about poaching Chen Xiaowan to work in the magnificent Tang Corp, but he hadn't found the right opportunity to mention it to her since they had just met. I'm going to find her. After making up his mind, Tan Xiao went downstairs to the garage, and even picked the Adra or sports car. He was ready to play the role of a playboy to support his older sister. On the way to the brisk trading group, Tan Xiao thought about Sujinin again. Sujinin was working in the imperial capital now. Although her position and salary were quite good, she was just a senior white-collar worker, after all, and it was somewhat inappropriate for her to stay there alone. He was quite ruthless sometimes, but after his relationship with Sujinin in the imperial capital improved a bit, he had the idea to let Sujinin leave the imperial capital and work in the magnificent Tang Corporation. Not to mention that if it weren't for Sujinin, it would have been impossible for him to know Chen Xiaowan. Therefore, after hesitating for a while, he put on his Bluetooth headset and dialed Sujinin's number. "What's up?" Sujinin's cold voice came from the phone. However, Tang Xiao could tell from her words that she had saved his number. "How have you been recently? Did you suffer any grievances working in the imperial capital?" asked Tan Xiao. "Thanks to you, boss treats me very well now," said Sujinin. "It's not a long-term plan for you to work alone in the imperial capital," said Tan Xiao. "You can work in the magnificent Tang Corp if you want. Kong Xia has been preparing for a big move recently, and has decided to set up branch offices in major provinces in the country. You can choose any province except the imperial capital and Shanghai to be the branch's general manager." Sujinin fell into silence. Although her job in the imperial capital was very good, she still felt a bit depressed. After all, she was all alone in the imperial capital. It was fine in normal times as she would occasionally go out with her friends. But every time she was sick and uncomfortable, she always hoped to have her loved ones by her side. Especially last week, when she had a bad cold and was lying in bed, no one even brought her a bottle of water. Even at that time, she suddenly felt that even if Tan Xiao was there, she would still feel a trace of warmth. Looking at Sujinin's silence, Tan Xiao lightly said, "You don't need to rush to give me an answer. After all, the establishment of the branch offices in each province has yet to be officially scheduled. I'm afraid it will take another 10 days. Just think about it, and tell me when you've made up your mind." "All right." Sujinin let out an imperceptible grunt. "Let me tell you something," said Tan Xiao. "I met Sis Xiaowan in Shanghai." "Chen Xiaowan?" Sujinin stared blankly and hurriedly asked. "That's right. She works in a foreign-funded enterprise in Shanghai," said Tan Xiao. "Can you give me her contact number?" Sujinin quickly said. "We separated after graduating from high school. We occasionally contacted each other during college, but we eventually broke off contact due to various reasons. I wanted to find her after graduation, but I found that she had changed her contact number." "All right. I'll send it to your cell phone later." After hanging up the phone, Tan Xiao sent Chen Xiaowan's cell phone number to Sujinin. At the brisk trading group, Chen Xiaowan was in a very bad mood. Sitting in the office chair, she looked at the angry expression of her boss who parachuted into the company. She was disheartened. As the vice president of the Human Resources Department, She was appreciated by her previous boss, and usually worked very comfortably. But just over a week ago, her immediate boss resigned from the position of the Human Resources Department's general manager due to illness and strongly recommended her to the company's top management to be the Human Resources Department's general manager. Unfortunately, the sudden appearance of a general manager made her unable to get the opportunity to be promoted. It would have been fine if it was only this. But the most depressing thing was that this general manager who parachuted into her position was her archenemy during college, the former vice president of the student union, Miao Xinran. You're abusing your position to avenge a private grudge. Chen Xiaowan suppressed her anger and looked at Miao Xinran, whose hands were pressed on her desk. Chen Xiaowan, please don't be so narrow-minded, Miao Xinran angrily said. The grudge between us in the past was indeed because your ability was better, and you finally became the student union president. But that's all in the past, and I've long forgotten about it. Now, I'm the Human Resources Department's general manager of the Brisk Trading Group, while you're just the vice president, my subordinate. I have the right to arrange your work. After saying that, the anger on Miao Xinran's face suddenly subsided by more than half. Instead, there was a trace of pride on her face as she said, "Who told you not to have the ability to marry a good man? My husband is the vice president of the Brisk Trading Group. He's very powerful and has a deep background in Japan. But what about you? I heard that you got dumped by a wild man not long ago, right? I can still see the color of the green hat on your head. You bastard." Chen Xiaowan suddenly got up and angrily cursed. Miao Xinran sneered. "What's wrong? Are you angry out of shame? Let me tell you, I need to send some people to the Western branch. I know the conditions there are a bit hard, but the welfare and benefits are not reduced. So, you have to go, even if you don't want to. Otherwise, pack your things and get the hell out of here." After saying that, she didn't give Chen Xiaowan time to speak. She raised her chin and walked outside with her hateful high heels. Chen Xiaowan gasped for a few breaths, and an unwilling look appeared in her eyes. It was very difficult to be promoted in a Japanese company, unless one's performance was particularly outstanding. Only then would there be a very small chance of being promoted. She had worked herself to death and achieved good results before she was barely promoted to the position of vice president of the Human Resources Department. But now she knew that she couldn't stay here any longer. She didn't want to leave Shanghai. Had it been more than half a month ago, she might have considered going to the western region. But now, she was no longer alone in Shanghai. She also had her little brother, Tanxiu. Ring ring ring. Her cell phone rang, interrupting her thoughts. Chen Xiaowan picked up the phone and looked at the caller ID. She found that it was an unfamiliar number from the imperial capital. She wanted to hang up, but she hesitated and adjusted her mood. After picking up the call she said, "Who is it, Xiaowan?" "Xiaowan." Sijinen's voice came from the phone. Chen Xiaowan was startled. The voice was somewhat familiar, but she couldn't remember who it was for a while. Just as she wanted to ask who the other party was, Sijinen's appearance suddenly appeared in her mind. Suddenly, her mood fluctuated. With a trace of expectation and excitement, she tentatively asked, "Yanning?" Chapter 579. Chen Xiaowan once fantasized that she would be very rich in the future. But she never dared to imagine that she would have tens of millions of pocket money. It was because this amount was too far away from her. But now, the younger brother whom she once misunderstood had opened his heart and told her that he would give her tens of millions of pocket money. It made her so scared that her beautiful face turned pale, and she nearly choked to death on her own saliva. After a long while, only then did Chen Xiaowan speak with a flirtatious smile. "Don't talk nonsense, brother. Don't say that I don't dare to accept such a huge amount. Even if you force me to accept it, I'll be too scared to sleep. I absolutely can't accept it. If you have money but no place to spend it, then do some charity work. There are a lot of rich people nowadays, but there are even more poor people. I've adopted a lot of street children and helped Star City Chinese Medical Hospital set up a charity fund," said Tanxiu with a smile. "Although what I've done now is just a drop in the bucket, I'll make persistent efforts in the future." "That's right. Chen Xiaowan nodded with satisfaction and couldn't hide the appreciation in her eyes. Just as the two of them were enjoying their coffee and chatting, a beautiful girl walked into the cafe. She was wearing a black exercise suit, and behind her were two well-proportioned women in black suits. "Greetings, boss." Kawako came to Tan Xiao's side and greeted with cupped fists. The two women behind her knelt on one knee with one hand on their knee and the other on the ground. Tan Xiao, who had his back to the cafe's door, turned his head upon hearing Kawako's voice. When he saw the two women behind her, he immediately furrowed his brows and said in a deep voice, "Get up." Chen Xiaowan also followed the voice and looked at Kawako. When she clearly saw Kawako's appearance, her beautiful eyes suddenly stared wide and filled with disbelief. She suddenly jumped up from the sofa, looking panicked and restless. Tan Xiao was keenly aware of Chen Xiaowan's unusual behavior. Although he was a bit surprised inwardly, he still looked at Kawako and said, "You know I don't like people to be too reserved in front of me. So restrain your men and change the way they kneel in front of me." Kawako was startled upon hearing this, and a look of fear and trepidation appeared on her face. She quickly replied respectfully, "Understood. This subordinate will definitely teach him well." Tan Xiao nodded in response. He got up and pulled Chen Xiaowan to his side. After asking her to sit next to him, he pointed to the opposite sofa and motioned for Kawako to sit there. This time, Kawako was much smarter and immediately ordered her two men to wait on the sofa next door. "Speak. You suddenly came to Shanghai from Japan. What do you have to give me?" Kawako placed the suitcase in front of Tan Xiao and respectfully said, "Boss, this is something my men snatched from some explorers. The group of explorers hired a very powerful mercenary group from abroad, and the result was amazing. This thing is the most important thing among those harvests. I think it's pretty good, so I immediately rushed over to present it to you after I got it." Tan Xiao nodded and gently opened the suitcase. Despite having a tough mind, Tan Xiao still couldn't help but gasp after seeing the item inside the suitcase. As a supreme in the immortal world, he had obtained countless precious things, so even the most precious treasures in the immortal world couldn't make him reveal such a shocked expression. The chrono crystal? What was the thing that Tan Xiao wanted the most at present? It was naturally the chrono crystal. It was because one of the treasures that cured his disciple, Guyan, he had imagined countless times that he would have to wait until he was strong enough to get the chrono crystal. Then he would have to travel to the surrounding starfields. Even if he had to travel far and face some dangers, he must get it. Who would have thought that the chrono crystal that he yearned for even in his dreams was now right in front of him? The most unbelievable thing was that it was given to him by Kawako. All of a sudden, Tan Xiao raised his head and stared at Kawako, asking in a deep voice, "How did you get this thing? Where did you get it?" "It was in the Alps," said Kawako respectfully. "Among the mercenaries hired by the expedition team, two of them were elites trained by the Yamamoto family. Coincidentally, a few months ago, I met them when they snuck back to the family. Then, I controlled them and they became my trusted subordinates. Therefore, after they reported the purpose of the expedition, I became interested and sent a lot of people to help them. In the end, the harvest was quite bountiful." The Alps? A firm look appeared in Tan Xiao's eyes as he decided to find some time to go there. After all, it was definitely not an ordinary place for the chrono crystal to appear there. At this moment, he originally regarded Kawako as a chess piece, but now, he was truly grateful to her. Although he had her under his control, she followed him from the bottom of her heart. She was willing to give such an important treasure to him, indicating that she was very good, very good. Tan Xiao reached out to close the suitcase. The moment he closed it, he took out 2 bottles of medicinal pills from his interspatial ring and put them inside without anyone noticing. Then he said, "The things inside are part of your reward. You've done a great job this time, and I'm very satisfied. This thing may be a relatively hard crystal in the eyes of others, but it's the best treasure in my eyes. Stay in Demonic City for a few days. I'll assign 10 experts to follow you and help you later." 10 experts? Kawako was excited inwardly. Although she didn't know what the reward in the suitcase Tan Xiao mentioned was, Those 10 experts were too important for her. She had seen Tanxio's men. Each and every one of them was very powerful, and she couldn't deal with many of them. And now, the struggle for power and profit in her family was the most intense. Although she had learned the soul-ruling art from Tanxio and could control the life and death of others, she still felt that the number of experts under her was too little. She believed that the number of true experts under her was too little. If those 10 experts were to follow her, she believed that she would soon be able to open up a new situation in her family and become an outstanding figure in the new generation of her family, as well as the first successor to the patriarch. Thank you, boss. Kawako thanked him from the bottom of her heart. Tanxio shook his head. He wanted to rush to Jingmen Island immediately after getting the chrono crystal. However, Kawako had just arrived in Demonic City and Chen Xiaowan was still with her, so it was not appropriate for him to leave now. After weighing the pros and cons, he felt that he didn't need to be too impatient. It was already too late today, so he could just wait until tomorrow to rush to Jingmen Island. Tanxio fiddled with the chrono crystal for a while, and then quietly put it into his interspatial ring. He then turned to the dumbfounded Chen Xiaowan and said, Sis Xiaowan, your expression was a bit strange when you saw Kawako. What's going on? Chen Xiaowan didn't hear the conversation between Tanxio and Kawako clearly. She was struck by a tempestuous storm since she never dreamed that the subordinate Tanxio mentioned turned out to be Kawako. At this moment, she felt Tanxio's arm touch her, waking her up as though she was in a dream. She hurriedly got up and asked, Brother, what's wrong? Tanxio frowned and said, Sis Xiaowan, what's going on with you? How come seeing Kawako is like seeing a monster? Do you know each other? Kawako looked at Chen Xiaowan and shook her head. I don't know this young lady, boss. Chen Xiaowan secretly gulped. She hesitated for a while and then whispered, Brother, she's the big boss of the Brisk Trading Group. I've seen her at a company celebration. Tanxio was stunned. Kawako was also stunned. She pondered for a moment and suddenly said, You're talking about the Brisk Trading Group? There seems to be such a company among the businesses under my control. But I'm too busy, so I've handed most of the business to my subordinates to take care of. I only occasionally pay attention to it. Chen Xiaowan's heartbeat sped up a few beats. She was even more shocked by Kawako's identity. After all, the Brisk Trading Group was a large listed company. Yet it was only one of the many companies under her control. How much wealth did she have? No. She's Tanxio's subordinate. That means, Chen Xiaowan turned her head with difficulty and looked at Tanxio in disbelief. Tanxio didn't expect that Chen Xiaowan's original company turned out to be one of the companies under Kawako's control. Recalling how he accompanied Chen Xiaowan to play and talked about the problems she encountered in the company today, Tanxio suddenly thought of a fun game. Kawako, let me introduce you. This is my god-sister, Chen Xiaowan. I came from a poor family when I was a teenager, so Sis Xiaowan was very good to me. She's like my biological sister in my heart. However, she was an employee of the Brisk Trading Group before this morning. She was wronged in your company and was kicked out. Do you think it's interesting? Tanxio said with a faint smile. Whoosh! Kawako suddenly got up from the sofa and said with a nervous expression, It's my fault, boss. Please punish me. I don't mean to punish you. Tanxio waved his hand and said, I just don't think this sister of mine can be wronged in vain. Kawako pondered for a moment. She was quick-witted and immediately came up with an idea. She respectfully said, Boss, since Sis Chen was wronged in the Brisk Trading Group, then I'll definitely make the people who wronged her pay a painful price. Please give me a chance to invite Sis Chen to work in the Brisk Trading Group again. I'll make her the general manager of the Brisk Trading Group. The entire Brisk Trading Group will be her private property in the future. What do you think about it? I don't think it's necessary to give it to Sis Xiaowan for free. Tanxio waved his hand. But I think it's a good idea to let her take the position of the Brisk Trading Group's general manager. Sis Xiaowan, what do you think? Chapter 580. Upon hearing it, Chen Xiaowan hastily waved her hand and said, No. Don't joke with Big Sis, brother. I'm perfectly aware of my own ability. If I were to take the position of general manager, I'm afraid it wouldn't take long for the whole company to go bankrupt. Tan Xiao pondered for a moment and simply said, since you don't want to be the general manager of the brisk trading group, then be the vice general manager. Isn't the husband of that classmate who bullied you the vice general manager of the brisk trading group? It shouldn't be a problem for you to replace him, right? Brother, is this appropriate? Chen Xiaowan hesitated. If it's not appropriate, then I'll tell Kawako to give you the entire brisk trading group. Tan Xiao asked back. You can do whatever you want with it. Chen Xiaowan hurriedly said, No. Vice General Manager it is. I'll definitely work hard in the future. Tan Xiao couldn't help laughing and said, Haven't you seen it yet, Sis Xiaowan? Nobody will dare to make things difficult for you in the future, no matter if you work hard or not. You can be said to be hugging a big tree in the brisk trading group. If anyone dares to bully you, just call Kawako directly. She can take care of it for you. Big Sis Chen, you can do whatever you want in the brisk trading group, said Kawako quickly. Chen Xiaowan looked at Kawako and then shifted her eyes to Tan Xiao. She suddenly found that the world had changed really fast. She was full of grievances and confusion about the future when she was fired. After a day of crazy fun, the plot suddenly took a 360-degree turn. It could be said that she now worshipped Tan Xiao from the bottom of her heart. She hadn't seen her little brother for many years, yet he unexpectedly possessed such terrifying power, and became her god of protection. Half an hour later, Tan Xiao sent Chen Xiaowan back to her residence, and watched her enter the building before he started the car and left. After thinking about it for a while, he still couldn't hold back, and decided to rush to Jingmen Island overnight. The next morning, when Tan Xiao drove the Ajuroar luxury supercar to Jingmen Island's everlasting feast hall, Ji Qimei, who had been notified in advance, was already waiting in the parking lot. Supreme Lord, Ji Qimei didn't know that Tan Xiao had obtained the chrono crystal. However, seeing Tan Xiao rush here in the middle of the night, she understood that something big must have happened. Tan Xiao said, Give me the demonic revival grass. Ji Qimei stared blankly for a moment, before she immediately took out the demonic revival grass from her interspatial ring, and respectfully handed it over to Tan Xiao. Subsequently, both of them came to the entrance of the Linglong Treasure Pagoda in the middle of the sea. Tan Xiao ordered, Stand guard here. Do not allow anyone to take half a step into the Linglong Treasure Pagoda. Not even Xiao Shui or the light and dark siblings. Yes. Ji Qimei was confused, but she still answered respectfully. On the 7th floor of the Linglong Treasure Pagoda, Tan Xiao's clothes were thin, but he was able to ignore the frigid cold. Looking at Gu Yan, lying flat on the ice bed, the demonic revival grass in his hand flew up in an instant. Under the pressure of the star force, it finally condensed into a drop of emerald green condensed liquid essence. Tan Xiao sent this drop of condensed liquid essence into Gu Yan'er's mouth. The cobblestone-sized chrono crystal was carefully placed between Gu Yan'er's eyebrows by Tan Xiao. In an instant, an incomparably violent energy burst out from Gu Yan'er's lying flat body. If it weren't for Tan Xiao's current strength being very strong, just this violent energy alone would have crushed his internal organs into meat paste. At the same time, 2 meters around Gu Yan'er's body, visible to the naked eye, appeared out of thin air. Streams of space force flowed into Gu Yan'er's body like a clear spring. Time flowed by. A layer of light curtain gradually condensed around Gu Yan'er. As time went on, the thickness of the light curtain kept increasing. In the end, it was like a cocoon-emitting light curtain that enveloped Gu Yan'er. Magic City. At the Brisk Trading Group's HQ, Taro Ono, the general manager of China's branch company, received a notice from his big boss early in the morning that she would come to the company for an inspection today. The news was very sudden, but Taro Ono was very excited. A few years ago, he was just an economic talent cultivated by the Yamamoto family with a very low status. Later on, Kawako picked him out and trained him for 2 years. Then, she arranged for him to go to China, and made him the general manager of the Brisk Trading Group. His status suddenly improved by leaps and bounds. Therefore, he was very grateful to Kawako from the bottom of his heart. He even told himself countless times that he would be her most loyal subordinate. After he came to China, he worked hard and expanded the brisk trading group's scale several times. At the same time, he also learned that his big boss's status in the Yamamoto family had been improving recently. She was even on par with several others in the patriarch's competition. This news, it was like injecting him with a shot of stimulant. He couldn't wait to develop the brisk trading group better and accumulate more capital wealth for his big boss, Kawako, so that she would have more capital to compete for the patriarch's position in the Yamamoto family. Therefore, he hurried to the company early in the morning and made a series of arrangements before quietly waiting for his big boss's arrival. In the spacious hall on the first floor of the brisk trading group's building, dozens of the company's executives were standing in 2 rows, with hundreds of low-level management members standing behind them. Taro Ono stood in the middle, pacing back and forth with an expectant look on his face. As the vice president of the brisk trading group, Masakio Kato could be said to be second only to one person in the company and had great authority. He used to be Kawako's classmate and was appointed to work in China's brisk trading group because of this relationship. Today he was particularly excited and even asked his wife, Miao Shinran, to dress him up. His suit was neat, his tie was neat, and even his shoes were polished. "Kato-kun, is there any problem with my clothes?" Taro Ono suddenly stopped and turned to look at Masakio Kato. Masakio Kato hurriedly paced 2 steps forward and scrutinized Taro Ono, saying, "There's no problem. You look great." Taro Ono nodded with satisfaction. Clatter, clatter, clatter. The sound of high-heeled shoes stepping on the ground came from outside the building's entrance. In a flash, everyone's eyes shifted toward the entrance. "What's going on?" Taro Ono slightly furrowed his brows with a displeased look in his eyes. It was because he didn't see his big boss, Kawako Yamamoto, but an employee of the brisk trading group. He vaguely remembered that this woman was a management member of the HR department. "General manager, vice general manager, I'm sorry I'm late." Although Chen Xiaowan had a well-thought-out plan at this time, and knew that she could do whatever she wanted in the brisk trading group in the future with Kawako as her backing, she was still a bit nervous in front of Taro Ono and Masakio Kato. Most importantly, there were hundreds of high-level and low-level management members of the company watching them. Anger rose inside Taro Ono's heart as he said in a deep voice, "You should have received a notice last night that you must arrive at the company before 8 o'clock today. Tell me why you're late." "Because she's been fired. She's no longer an employee of our brisk trading group." In the crowd, Miao Shinran was slightly stunned at first upon seeing Chen Xiaowan's appearance. Then she looked ecstatic. After Taro Ono finished speaking, she rushed out and spoke aloud. Taro Ono stared blankly for a moment before he angrily asked, "She's been fired, so why is she still in the company?" "I don't know, General Manager," said Miao Shinran with a mocking tone. "She did pack up her things yesterday and left our company. Who would have thought that she would come back now? Maybe she felt too much pain from being fired, so her brain had a problem, and she foolishly ran here to be a big-tail wolf. Look, her expression is very awkward and angry. Now that she has been exposed by me, she must be very ashamed. Do you want me to tell the security to kick her out?" "She's been fired, so kick her out," Taro Ono said with dissatisfaction. At this moment, Masakio Kato suddenly stood up and said, "Hold on. General Manager, I think she's an employee of our brisk trading group. Yet she inexplicably appeared in our company. She must have some ulterior motive. I suggest that we don't kick her out yet. Let the security guards escort her to the security room. We'll interrogate her again after the big boss finishes his inspection." Clap, clap, clap. Crisp applause came from the building's entrance. Kawako Yamamoto, dressed in professional attire, entered the building along with more than a dozen men she brought from Japan. "Kato-kun is a conscientious and responsible person. You're really worthy to be my old classmate. I appreciate you very much. I almost wanted to make you the general manager of the brisk trading group," said Kawako loudly with a trace of contempt in her eyes. Upon seeing Kawako's arrival, a stunned expression flashed in Masakio Kato's eyes. He immediately strode forward and greeted her with a flattering smile. "Hello, boss. Thank you for your appreciation. On behalf of the company, I'd like to welcome you to inspect our work. At this moment, Taro Ono should have been the one to greet Masakio Kato, but it was snatched away by Masakio Kato, causing him to be furious inwardly. However, he also knew that Masakio Kato was a former classmate of the big boss, so he sighed helplessly and greeted, "Welcome to the inspection, boss." Kawako nodded with a cold arrogance and suddenly asked, "Kato-kun, I heard that you got married a few years ago? Furthermore, you're married to an outstanding woman from China. I wonder if you can let me see her?" Not far away, Miao Shinran's eyes lit up. The big boss appreciation of her husband made her very excited. Upon hearing the big boss mentioning her, she nearly ran to the front of Kawako and respectfully said, "Hello, boss. I'm Miao Shinran, Kato-kun's wife." Kawako smiled and nodded. "Not bad. She's quite a beautiful woman. Her skin is also well maintained, so it should be very elastic, right?" After saying that, Kawako suddenly raised her hand and fiercely slapped Miao Shinran's face. 5 bright red fingerprints appeared on her face, as the slap sent Miao Shinran flying several meters away and heavily fell to the ground. Chapter 581. What's going on? Hundreds of executives and bottom-level managers of the company were dumbfounded as they watched the scene in disbelief. Even the deputy general manager, Masakio Kato, was dumbfounded at the moment. Praising his wife's good skin, yet wanting to know how elastic it was there a need to slap her? Kawako lifted the palm that slapped Miao Shinran and nodded in praise. "It does feel good. No wonder Big Sis Chun wanted to slap her face a few times. Kato, I never thought that you'd be so lucky to marry a wife with such elastic skin. Congratulations." "Congratulations my ass." Masakio Kato cursed inwardly, yet squeezed out a smile on his face and said, "You're too polite, boss. I'll immediately tell my wife to give you some of the cosmetics she usually uses." Kawako's expression turned cold and she said in a cold voice, "Kato, do you think this lady needs cosmetics to cover up my ugliness?" Masakio Kato's expression instantly changed, and he replied in fear and trepidation, "No, no, no. Boss, you're a natural beauty. You're like a goddess who descended to earth. You don't need cosmetics to cover up your ugliness." Kawako snorted coldly and walked to the disbelieving Miao Shinran. She pulled her up from the ground and asked, "Are you all right?" I'm fine." Miao Shinran was about to explode with anger, yet she could only endure the humiliation and force a smile. The corner of Kawako's mouth curled into a smile. She raised her hand and slapped Miao Shinran a few more times, especially the last slap. She used a lot of strength and directly flung Miao Shinran 5+ meters away, before she heavily fell to the ground. "Since you're fine, then I'll make you suffer," Kawako said in a deep voice with a bit of overbearing tone. At this moment, everyone could see that this big boss was not testing whether Miao Shinran's skin was good or not. It was obvious that she wanted to slap her. However, everyone was also very curious. How did Miao Shinran offend the big boss? She was actually humiliated by the big boss in public. Masakio Kato was completely dumbfounded. He was a smart man, so how could he not see Kawako's real intention? Yet he couldn't figure out how his wife had offended her to the point that she wanted to beat her in public. "Boss, do you have a problem with that?" Kawako coldly shouted. Masayoshi Kato's heart trembled, and the words he was about to say were swallowed back into his stomach. He was well aware of how much power Kawako had. Let alone his wife being beaten in public, he wouldn't dare to offend her even if he was killed in public. Unless he was tired of living. Trash. Kawako looked at Masakio Kato's expression and coldly said. Then she shifted to Taro Ono and said, "How are you feeling now, Mr. Ono?" Taro Ono's forehead was covered with cold sweat, showing a frightened look. Although Kawako reprimanded Masakio Kato and beat up his wife made him very happy, he was afraid that he would end up in the same situation if he said the wrong thing and said the same thing to Kawako. "I'm in a good mood to see you, boss. I feel very honored." Kawako nodded in satisfaction. She then turned around and walked to Chun Xiaowan's side, pulling her hand and saying, "You're in a good mood, so take care of Big Sis Chun and the company later. I won't spare you if you dare to let her suffer even the slightest grievance. Yes, yes, yes. Taro Ono hurriedly nodded and took the opportunity to secretly look at Chen Xiaowan. Never in his wildest dreams did he expect that a small deputy manager of his company's HR department would have the backing of a big boss. Furthermore, what kind of identity did this big boss have? She actually called her Big Sis Chen? Who exactly was this woman? What kind of terrifying background did she have? Kawako looked around and saw the nervous faces of the company's executives and bottom-level managers. Then, she said in a deep voice, I hereby announce that Masakio Kato is dismissed from his post and will no longer be the deputy manager of the Brisk Trading Group. Big Sis Chen Xiaowan will replace him and become the new deputy general manager of the Brisk Trading Group. Clap, clap, clap. Warm applause reverberated throughout the hall. Masakio Kato was dumbfounded. Never in his wildest dreams did he expect that Kawako would announce such a personnel appointment. He was the deputy general manager of the Brisk Trading Group, an old classmate of Kawako's. He had worked hard for the Brisk Trading Group and made great contributions. Now he was fired just like that? Kawako angrily shouted. Do you think you're qualified to call my name? Get the hell out of China. Don't ever let me see you again. Masakio Kato's complexion instantly turned livid. He shot a deep look at Chen Xiaowan and seemed to muster up a lot of courage to ask aloud. Boss, I need you to give me a reason. After all, I've done a lot of things for the Brisk Trading Group all these years. Even if I don't have any meritorious deeds, I still have my hard work. Talking about meritorious deeds and hard work with me? Kawako sneered. No problem, then I'll tell you. You married a good wife. Not only did she bully my big sis Chen, but she also fired her from the company and made her suffer. Let me tell you, anyone who dares to make big sis Chen suffer will have a very miserable end. I'm already lenient to you by dealing with this matter like this. Otherwise, Masakio Kato finally understood that all of this was caused by his wife, Miao Shinran. A flame of anger was ignited in his heart, and was about to start a prairie fire in the blink of an eye. He sprinted to Miao Shinran's side and picked her up from the ground. Then he fiercely slapped her swollen face a dozen times and cursed loudly. It's all because of you, bitch. Who can't you provoke? Why must you provoke Miss Chen? Divorce. This father must divorce you, you unlucky bastard. Don't even think about getting a cent of my property. Miao Shinran was in despair. She finally understood why Kawako wanted to clean her up. It turned out to be because of that bitch, Chen Xiaowan. In just a few minutes, her beautiful appearance had turned into a pig's head. But what she cared about the most was not the beating, but the words of her husband, Masakio Kato. Divorce? Leaving the family with nothing? At this moment, Miao Shinran even had the thought of dying. The reason why she could live such a comfortable life was because Masakio Kato could make money and provide her extravagant expenses. If he were to abandon her and she couldn't get a penny, how could she live in the future? All of a sudden, she turned to look at Chen Xiaowan like a drowning person grabbing a life-saving straw. After being thrown to the ground by Masakio Kato, she nearly crawled to Chen Xiaowan and knelt on the ground, crying and begging, Xiaowan, it's all my fault. Please forgive me. Please don't let the boss fire me or my husband. Please, I beg you, for the sake that we used to be classmates. Chen Xiaowan was kind-hearted by nature. She couldn't bear to see Miao Shinran fall into such a miserable end. Just as she was about to speak, Kawako kicked Miao Shinran a few meters away. She then grabbed Chen Xiaowan's wrist and affectionately pulled her to the elevator. Big Sis Chen, I'll tell someone to clean up the best office for you. I'll take you there. Chen Xiaowan hesitated and secretly sighed inwardly as she was pulled away by Kawako. 7 days later, Tan Xiu was sitting cross-legged in the corner of the 7th floor of the exquisite pagoda, while staring at the light screen. Suddenly his expression moved. He could keenly sense the fluctuation of immortal force coming from the light screen, as well as the cracks on the light screen. Kacha! The light screen turned into sparkling lights and completely shattered. Gu Yan'er, who was originally lying on the ice bed, opened her eyes at this time. Her eyes were as beautiful as the stars, filled with shock and disbelief. How do you feel, Yan'er? Tanxiu floated up and approached Gu Yan, a few steps as he asked anxiously. Gu Yan, blinked and suddenly appeared in front of Tanxiu. Her delicate body pressed against Tanxiu's chest and her slender arms hugged Tanxiu. She then said with an excited and trembling voice, "Master, my injuries have healed. This feeling is really great." Intense ecstasy rose in Tanxiu's heart. Ever since he learned that Gu Yan came to earth for him and was injured by Shade Demon Zhu Wuxia's Twilight Nightmare, he was eager to get the demonic revival grass and the chrono crystal to completely heal Gu Yan's injuries. Now, his dream had come true. After the excitement, Tanxiu was still a bit worried. He reached out to grab Gu Yan's wrist and felt the situation in her body. However, when he pressed his finger on Gu Yan's wrist and felt her pulse for more than 10 seconds, his brows slightly wrinkled. He found that although Gu Yan's injuries had healed, there was almost no trace of immortal force in her body. There was even a special energy fluctuation lingering around her heart. "That's," Tanxiu repeatedly observed for a long time, his brows furrowing even tighter. "Profound Yin Devil Force?" Tanxiu finally determined that the energy lingering around Gu Yan's heart was Shade Demon Zhu Wuxia's heart blood. The profound Yin Force and Devil Force were infused into the heart blood. This kind of energy was of a very high level. It was comparable to divine power, but not much inferior. "This is troublesome." Tanxiu frowned and looked up at the smiling Gu Yan. Tanxiu sighed inwardly and said, "How much has your strength been affected, Yan?" "My strength hasn't been affected much, master." Gu Yan chuckled. "It's just that the profound Yin Devil Force in my heart is very special, and it will take me a long time to refine it. However, I don't need to worry about falling into a deep slumber. I just need to use the cold air here to suppress it and refine it bit by bit." "You can't leave the exquisite pagoda for the time being?" asked Tanxiu. "There's no way for the time being." Gu Yan nodded. "But I'll be able to completely refine that profound Yin Devil Force in a few years at most. At that time, not only will my cultivation not be affected, but I might even be able to profit from this disaster and advance my cultivation to the next level." Chapter 582. Tanxiu heavily nodded and exhorted. "Then you can refine the black Yin demonic force here with peace of mind. Just leave the outside matters to me. You can go out with me after you've completely solved this problem." Gu Yan nodded with a smile and snuggled up to Tanxiu for a long time. Only then did she smile and asked, "Have you found the chrono crystal, master?" "I originally thought that it was impossible to find the chrono crystal on Earth, so I've long planned to go to the starfield outside Earth to look for it after I can break through the atmosphere," Tanxiu smilingly said. "Who would have thought that one of my subordinates inadvertently found the chrono crystal when he was protecting a pair of explorers in the Alps? My subordinate didn't know about the chrono crystal, but he realized that it was a very precious ore. Hence, he sent it to Demonic City." Gu Yan suddenly understood and smilingly said, "It seems that my luck is really good, master. Also, there are too many good things on Earth. Countless people in the immortal world want to get their hands on these treasures, yet there are so many of them on Earth. I think there must be a very important reason for this." "That's right." Tanxiu nodded. "It's a pity that my current cultivation is too low. I don't dare to go to many places even on Earth. But you, after the black Yin demonic force in your body is completely refined, you can take this master to walk around. I'm sure it won't be a problem with you around." Gu Yan's eyes lit up and she nodded with a bit of excitement. "I'll definitely work hard to completely refine the black Yin demonic force as soon as possible, master." After the master and disciple chatted for a long time, Tanxiu smilingly said, "Since I used the chrono crystal and the demonic revival grass to treat you, I told Chime and Light and Dark to stay outside. Now that you're awake, let them come in." "Master, although there's still a hidden danger of the black Yin demonic force in my body, it's not a problem to go outside for an hour or two a day." Gu Yan chuckled. "I want to go out and have a meal with you. Let's not call them in and just go out directly." Tanxiu pondered for a moment before he slowly nodded and said, "If that's the case, then we can go out. But you must remember, You must not leave the Linglong Treasure Pagoda for more than 2 hours every day. It's best if you don't go out if you can. All right. Gu Yenner nodded with a smile. Outside the Linglong Treasure Pagoda, Ji Qimei was sitting cross-legged, while the light and dark siblings were also sitting cross-legged in cultivation. Only Gu Xiaoxue was pacing anxiously. She didn't know why her Grand Master suddenly came to Jingmen Island. She also didn't know why her Grand Master had entered the exquisite pagoda for such a long time without coming out. Boom! The door of the pagoda opened automatically, and 2 figures floated out from the inner door. Master? Gu Xiaoxue's body trembled, and her eyes were filled with disbelief. Ji Qimei and the light and dark siblings also opened their eyes in an instant. When they saw Gu Yan, by Tanxio's side, they immediately looked shocked. This was because they knew about Gu Yenner's situation. Logically speaking, she should still be in a deep sleep, and it would probably take a few more years before she could wake up. How could she wake up now? Master! Master! The light and dark siblings and Ji Qimei hurriedly saluted. Look at your shocked faces. It's funny, said Gu Yenner with a smile. You didn't expect me to wake up, did you? Gu Xiaoxue excitedly ran to Gu Yenner's side. She pulled her arm and said with a trembling voice, Master, we really didn't expect that you would wake up. That's great. Grand Master must have found a way to treat you. That's right. Gu Yenner slightly smiled and said, My internal injuries are basically healed, except for some special problems that haven't been solved yet. However, I won't fall into a coma again. I just need to cultivate every day, and I can completely remove the hidden dangers in my body after a few years. Really? Gu Xiaoxue was ecstatic, and the other 3 were also overjoyed. At the Everlasting Feast Hall, the news of Gu Yenner's reappearance was once again passed to the ears of every core disciple of the Everlasting Feast Hall. Furthermore, they also got the news that Gu Yenner would take charge of the Everlasting Feast Hall in the future. She would usually enter seclusion, and occasionally come out to guide everyone in their cultivation. Shortly after, Tanxio accompanied Gu Yenner to have a meal, and then stayed in the Everlasting Feast Hall. Although he had to attend classes at Shanghai University, he still wanted to accompany Gu Yenner. Only after a week did he bid farewell to Gu Yenner and return to Shanghai. For the rest of his life, everything remained the same. Aside from attending classes and teaching medical skills to Dai Xinyue, Tanxio spent the rest of his time either reading books or cultivating. His days were very pleasant. Until the New Year's Day, he went to Jingmen Island again and accompanied Gu Yenner for 2 days. The magnificent Tang Corporation's business was getting better and better, yet the supply of each product still couldn't meet the demand. Almost every time the products were on sale, they would be sold out. With the accumulation of funds, Kong Xia's time in Star City was getting less and less. Aside from setting up branches in various provincial capitals, she spent half of her time in Shanghai, negotiating the land purchase agreement with the government and contacting the construction company to build the magnificent Tang Corporation's new HQ as well as 2 large factories. New Year's Day was approaching. On the first day of Shanghai University's holiday, Tanxio received an unexpected call. Excuse me, are you Tanxio Grand Master? A timid voice came out of the phone. Tanxio frowned and asked, I'm Tanxio and you are? The other party's tone was obviously excited as he quickly replied, I'm Chintong Grand Master. Chintong? Tanxio stared blankly for a moment before he instantly realized that it was Chen Zhizhong's son. He had heard Chen Zhizhong mention Chintong's name before. He immediately let out a faint smile and asked, Is there something you need from me? Chintong quickly said, Grand Master, my dad once said that you're a divine doctor. Can I ask you a favor? My classmate is suffering from a strange disease which is highly contagious. She's now quarantined in the Virus Research Institute in the imperial capital. Can you save her? If her strange disease is highly contagious, someone from the government should have intervened, right? Asked Tanxio. What's their conclusion? Tanxio asked. There's no reply. I spent a lot of money to barely get some news. It said that the experts and professors at the National Virus Research Institute can't figure out how this new virus is formed. However, I heard that my classmate has been given a notice of critical illness. I'm afraid she won't be able to be saved if there's no solution. Tan Xiao pondered for a moment and then said, "All right. I'll rush to the imperial capital now, and we'll talk about it in detail when I arrive. Also, I'll send you the flight number and arrival time after I've booked the ticket." "All right, thank you, Grandmaster," Chen Tong said gratefully. After hanging up the phone, Tan Xiao called Yuan Chuling. The two of them originally agreed to return to Star City together, but he had to temporarily change his destination, so he couldn't accompany him. As a result, he heard that Tan Xiao wouldn't return to Star City for the time being. So Yuan Chuling also decided to stay. The fitness club he had tinkered with was almost finished. He originally planned to open it after the new year, but since he couldn't go back for the time being, he decided to open it before the new year. At noon, Tan Xiao walked out of the Shanghai airport and looked around. He saw a young man with dyed blonde hair and a white down jacket trotting over. He was holding 2 umbrellas because it was raining outside. "Chen Tong?" asked Tan Xiao. "I'm Chen Tong, Grandmaster," said Chen Tong quickly. Why are you wearing so little? The temperature in the imperial capital is already below 0. Come, I'll give you my down jacket." After saying that, he was about to take off his down jacket and give it to Tan Xiao. Tan Xiao waved his hand to stop him. Although he was only wearing casual clothes, he didn't feel cold at all. With his current cultivation, he could easily adjust the temperature around him. With a smile, Tan Xiao said, "If I remember correctly, your father said that you're studying abroad. How did you come to the imperial capital?" "Our school's curriculum is very relaxed, and the vacation time is very early," said Chen Tong with a forced smile. "4 days ago, I went back to the imperial capital with my classmate. Her family lives in the imperial capital. We originally planned to have a good time for a few days, and then go back to Star City. Who would have thought that she started to have a high fever on the flight back, and she was even more confused after arriving in the imperial capital. She was sent to the hospital and was diagnosed with a viral disease, so she needed to be immediately quarantined. I was supposed to be quarantined as well, but I took the opportunity to sneak away." "That's right, Grandmaster. Because of my classmate, all the passengers on the flight back were also quarantined. Even all the people we came in contact with after getting off the plane, including the doctors and nurses, were also quarantined." "How many people are there?" asked Tan Xiao. "More than 200 people," said Chen Tong. "Also, more than half of them have started to have a high fever, the same symptoms as my classmate." "Are you all right?" asked Tan Xiao with a frown. "Speaking of which, it's quite strange." Chen Tong shook his head. "Although my dad forced me to practice martial arts since I was a child and my physical fitness is very good, but the transmission of the infectious virus is through saliva and close contact through the air. I'm the closest person to her, and we even kissed, but I'm completely fine until now." Tan Xiao furrowed his brows and grabbed Chen Tong's wrist. After checking his pulse, he found that he indeed didn't have any symptoms of being infected with the virus. Tan Xiao sensed a trace of energy fluctuation from Chen Tong's body. When he quickly pulled the red string on Chen Tong's neck, he saw the amulet he had made before, which was worn by Chen Tong. "Your dad really loves you. I gave him an amulet, and he actually gave you such an important amulet. Let's go. Take me to the Virus Research Institute." Chen Tong shuddered and hurriedly said, "I can't go to that Virus Research Institute, Grandmaster. You don't know, but many people are looking for me now, including the Public Security Bureau. In case they catch me, I'm sure they'll put me in quarantine. I heard that once you're quarantined and you can't find a cure, it's tantamount to being sentenced to death." Chapter 583. Tan Xiao could understand Chen Tong's fear. He recalled how many people were quarantined and died from the SARS virus during the SARS outbreak in 2002. As a matter of fact, the people in the country had a deep-rooted fear of infectious diseases, such as the plague that appeared in the past that killed many people every time. "Chen Tong, you must have enough courage to be my grand disciple. Your father is a good man, and I don't think his son is a good-for-nothing either, right? Trust me, I guarantee that you'll be safe and sound. Chen Tong hesitated for a moment before he nodded and said, Since you said so, then I believe you, Grandmaster. My car is parked outside. Let's go now. Tan Xiao nodded with satisfaction. Chen Tong might not be old and looked to be 1 or 2 years younger than him, but his courage was rare and commendable. Especially, his trust in him. The National Virus Research Institute was located in the remote southeast suburb of Shanghai. On the surface, it looked like a large chemical plant, but it was actually an extremely strict virus research center inside. There were plainclothes police officers patrolling 2 kilometers away, and the inside was even more tightly guarded. Zhang Lei, the security captain of the National Virus Research Institute, used to be an outstanding Special Forces soldier with high military attainments. After becoming a professional, he was assigned to this place to do the security work. Standing in front of the outermost gate post, Zhang Lei's eyes were filled with worry. Due to the emergence of a terrifying new virus and the widespread spread of it, the entire research institute was now filled with a depressing atmosphere. As for the container trucks that drove in from the outside, he knew that they were all infected with the virus or people who had close contact with the infected. Captain, there are foreign vehicles requesting to enter the institute. The voice of a security guard came from the communication device on Zhang Lei's waist. Zhang Lei said in a deep voice, Check their IDs and detect if there are any dangerous items in their vehicles. Do a comprehensive check according to the previous inspection method. Remember, don't have too much contact with the people in the vehicles, and everyone must wear a gas mask. Understood. A reply came from the communication device. Zhang Lei sighed. He suddenly wanted to smoke. However, smoking was prohibited in the Virus Research Institute, at least within 2 kilometers of the outermost gate post. After pondering for a moment, he decided to go outside to see the situation, and smoke to relieve his depressed mood. A few minutes later, when he drove the car to the first blockade line 2 kilometers away, the container truck had already been inspected, and was allowed to drive inside. Captain. Dozens of security guards in black uniforms saluted Zhang Lei. After returning the greeting, Zhang Lei took out a cigarette from his pocket and lit it up. After taking 2 puffs, he threw the remaining pack of cigarettes to the rest and asked in a deep voice, Is this the first car today? The 4th carriage. One of the security personnel replied. Zhang Lei sighed inwardly and bitterly smiled. I'm afraid that the isolation room is running out. In total, more than 300 people have been escorted here, right? The security guard nodded and said, According to the recorded data, there should be 329 people. If the experts in the Research Institute could not develop a cure for the virus, the first patient would not be able to survive. In addition, when we were on duty inside, Old Zhang, who was in charge of delivering meals, said that the number of patients who had started to have a high fever had increased to 62. Some of them are very serious. Zhang Lei didn't say anything else. Although he didn't want to encounter such a situation, he was just a security member. There was no way he could stop the tide. A white BMW 525 slowly stopped in front of everyone. Zhang Lei extinguished the cigarette in his hand and threw it into the trash can not far away. Then, he strode toward the white BMW 525. Hello, comrade. Please show me your ID. The window opened and Chen Tong, who was in the driver's seat, said, I'm Chen Tong, and I need to go in. Also, we don't have any ID. Zhang Lei stared blankly and suddenly recalled something. He quickly pulled out a pistol from his waist and aimed it at Chen Tong. At the same time, he quickly retreated 4 to 5 steps and shouted in a deep voice, Get off and accept the inspection. Chen Tong turned to look at Tan Xiao, who was in the front passenger seat. Tan Xiao patted Chen Tong's shoulder. After getting off the car, he came to a place a few meters away from Zhang Lei and lightly said, I'm Tan Xiao, a Chinese medicine practitioner with the qualification certificate. I need to check the situation in the Virus Research Institute. If it doesn't comply with the regulations, I hope you can contact the director of your research institute and report my matter to him. Zhang Lei was silent for a moment. Then he took out his communicator and reported, Director Wei, there's a young man named Tan Xiao. He said that he has the qualification certificate of a Chinese medicine practitioner and wants to enter the research institute. Additionally, the wanted man, Chen Tong, also came with him. Tan Xiao? A Chinese medicine practitioner? Where did he come from? Forget it. No matter who he is, he must undergo the inspection if he wants to enter the research institute. He came with Chen Tong. Maybe he's also infected. Detain them immediately and personally escort them inside. Director Wei's voice came out of the phone. Zhang Lei's expression changed. After he complied, he pointed his gun at Tan Xiao and said, "Comrade, please cooperate with us. The higher-ups have instructed us to inspect you and escort you inside." Tan Xiao squinted his eyes and a cold light flashed. Escort. The meaning of the word escort was completely different. He was not a suspect, but a doctor who came to help. Furthermore, he had also revealed his identity as a Chinese medicine practitioner. Yet the other party was so rude, which made him very angry. Virum. During this stalemate, the roar of an engine came from afar. More than a dozen black SUVs were like runaway horses as they aggressively rushed to the front of the crowd. As the doors neatly opened, a young man who looked to be about 26 or 27 years old, with earrings on his ears, dyed hair, and a toothpick in his mouth, was the first to dash over. However, when he saw the scene in front of him, he immediately frowned and shouted, "Good dogs don't block the way. Get the hell out of the way. You bastard with a gun. Do you know who this young master is? Get the hell out of here. Or else I'll break your fucking legs." Zhang Lei's expression changed. He didn't bother to pay attention to the non-mainstream youth, but the more than 20 black-suited stalwart men in their 30s or 40s that he brought with him made him secretly vigilant. "Who are you? This is a private chemical plant. Outsiders are forbidden to enter." The non-mainstream youth stepped forward and ridiculed. "Cut the crap. Don't think this young master doesn't know that this is the National Virus Research Institute. I, Zhao Yundi, have inquired about it before I came here. You're the one who captured my sister and detained her here. Get the hell out of here. Or else I'll have someone break your fucking legs." Zhang Lei coldly looked at Zhao Yundi and immediately picked up the communicator, saying, "The outermost blockade line is being threatened by unidentified people. Members of the second and third teams are coming immediately." Zhao Yundi's expression changed as he angrily glared at Zhang Lei. He then turned around and shouted to a middle-aged stalwart man behind him, "Rush in. Beat anyone who dares to resist to death. If they dare to use their guns, don't just stand there and do nothing. You dare to capture my sister and say that she's a virus carrier. If I don't save her today, I'll change my surname to yours." Immediately, more than 20 stalwart men took out their pistols from their waists and quickly unlocked the safety bolt. That uniform movement and the cold aura caused the string in Zhang Lei's heart to tighten abruptly. He used to be a special forces soldier, so he could naturally feel the aura of a soldier from these people. After pondering for a moment, he picked up the communicator and dialed Director Wei's number. "Director Wei, there's a young man who claims to be Zhao Yundi outside. He's leading more than 20 armed men to break through the blockade line of our institute. I request for an armed security team." "Zhao Yundi? How did that living ancestor come here?" Director Wei immediately shouted after listening to Zhang Lei's words. A few seconds later he said again, "Zhang Lei, don't act rashly. You just need to stop Zhao Yundi if he wants to break through the blockade line. Remember, don't use your guns. This little ancestor has a very strong background. I can't afford to provoke him. I must ask the higher-ups for instructions." "I got it." Although Zhang Lei was dissatisfied that Director Wei was afraid of a second-generation and third-generation expert, he still fulfilled his duty and called 2 groups of security team members. 30 to 40 people confronted Zhao Yundi. Tan Xiao sighed inwardly. He had heard Zhao Yundi's name from Tang Wei when he was chatting with him. This guy was a descendant of the Zhao family in the imperial capital, the grandson of the Zhao family's patriarch. He had an arrogant and despotic character, and liked to stir up trouble. He had even provoked the descendants of the big families in the imperial capital, including the Tang family and the former Yao family. He had taken advantage of them and suffered great losses. It could be said that this guy was a living devil incarnate. Tan Xiu looked at the two groups of people confronting each other. He sighed inwardly and turned to walk away. Hey, dude, you're not scared, are you? I just saw him pointing a gun at you. Are you afraid now? Are you going to run away? Zhao Yundi immediately shouted when he saw Tan Xiu walking away. He might be a rich playboy, but he was not stupid. Bringing people and guns to attack the state's institutions today would definitely cause serious consequences. He would never do such a stupid thing if the one being detained was not his sister. However, if the guy who was pointed at by a gun had a bit of background, then he would have someone to share the crisis. Tan Xiu stopped and glanced at him. He then took out his mobile and dialed his aunt, Tang Min's number. After the call was connected, he took the lead and said, "Auntie, I'm outside the Imperial Capital's Virus Research Institute. Can I trouble you to contact the person in charge here? I need to go inside and check the situation of the patients with infectious diseases." Chapter 584. At this moment, Tang Min was on the way to the Tang family's ancestral residence because the old patriarch called and said that he had something for her to do. Although the old patriarch didn't say it on the phone, she could guess that the major families in the imperial capital had begun to divide the Yao family's wealth and compete for the lost positions of the Yao family. This time, the Tang family was the mastermind behind the destruction of the Yao family, so they were destined to get the most. However, Tang Min didn't expect that her nephew, Tan Xiu, would come to the imperial capital at this time, and even went to the Virus Research Institute. She knew the director of the Virus Research Institute, Wei Shiqing. When Wei Shiqing was being suppressed, she took the initiative to help him. Otherwise, it would have been impossible for him to become the director of the Virus Research Institute. No problem. I'll immediately call the director of the Virus Research Institute, Wei Shiqing. Anyways, when did you come to the imperial capital, Xiao? Also, why did you come to the Virus Research Institute? There's a very serious infectious virus spreading recently. You're not coming for that, are you? Tang Min didn't take it seriously at first, but she suddenly realized that it was about the infectious virus and immediately tensed up. Auntie, I'm indeed here for that infectious virus, said Tan Xiu. I'll tell you the details after I'm done with my work. Xiu, Auntie knows that you have the title of the young divine doctor, but you mustn't take it lightly. That virus is not something to joke about. If you don't pay attention, you might. Bah. Look at what I'm talking about. Xiu, can we discuss this? Don't poke your nose into other people's business. Our Tang family is now in the midst of a big harvest. I'm sure you can get more benefits if you come and help us, said Tang Min hurriedly on the phone. What benefits? Asked Tan Xiu with a strange expression. It's the Yao family. Tang Min said. The Yao family has almost withdrawn from the imperial capital. Many of the wealth they once had has been secretly snatched by the major families. The vacated positions of the Yao family's members are also the target of many families. Tang Xiu suddenly understood and said with a smile, Auntie, I'll leave those things to you. I don't understand politics. If it's a matter of fighting and killing, I can help. Hearing Tan Xiu's words, Tang Min hesitated. Xiu, are you really not willing to change your mind? Tan Xiu said, I can't change my mind. Among those patients, there are people I need to help. Who is it? Asked Tang Min quickly. Tan Xiu smiled and said, She's a friend of my grand-disciple. I guess she should be his girlfriend. This is the first time I've met this grand-disciple of mine, and it's the first time he's begging me. So, Auntie, please contact Superintendent Wei. We can't delay it for too long. Alright, wait for my news. After saying that, Tang Min hung up the phone. Zhao Yundi had been eavesdropping on Tan Xiu's phone call. When he heard that Tan Xiu was calling his aunt, he was secretly disappointed. However, when he heard that Tan Xiu's aunt could contact Director Wei, he was secretly surprised. After all, the position of the National Virus Research Institute was very special, and officials with a bit of power simply couldn't get in touch with it. Only the department that controlled the real core power of the country might be able to contact Wei Shiqing. His Zhao family could also directly contact Wei Shiqing, but he couldn't wait. He was afraid that his sister would die in this damn Virus Research Institute. What's your name, bro? Zhao Yundi saw Tan Xiao coming back and asked with his chin raised. Tan Xiao, replied Tan Xiao with a faint smile. Zhao Yundi nodded and said, What's your aunt's job? Is she very capable? If she's not, then we might as well work together and break into it. At worst, I'll treat you as my brother. Tan Xiao couldn't help laughing and said, If I wanted to break into it, I would have done it long ago. These shrimp soldiers and crab generals can't stop me. Zhao Yundi rolled his eyes. If someone had boasted to him like this in the past, he would have slapped them in the face long ago. However, he wanted to rope in Tan Xiao now, so he endured his contempt and said, Bro, we're real men, and we won't brag. If you have the guts and are a real man, then we'll break in. Tan Xiao ignored Zhao Yundi's provocation and looked at the frosty Zhang Lei instead, asking lightly, How long will it take to get to Director Wei's office from here? Zhang Lei didn't want to answer Tan Xiao, but he could hear some other meaning from Tan Xiao's words. He wanted to see Tan Xiao make a fool out of himself, so he replied indifferently, It will take 12 minutes to run on foot, and 4.5 minutes to get to the office building by car. Tan Xiao nodded and looked at Zhao Yundi saying, 5 minutes. Give me 5 minutes. If the director of the Virus Research Institute doesn't appear in front of us in 5 minutes, I'll cooperate with you and we'll break in together. How about it? Zhang Lei stared blankly. Although he didn't quite believe it, he still endured the irritation and nodded. At this moment, inside the Virus Research Institute's director's office, Wei Shiqing had just called the Zhao family's patriarch and told him about Zhao Yundi's disturbance. After getting the apology and assurance from the Zhao family's patriarch, his tense heart finally calmed down. However, before he could catch his breath, his cell phone rang. This number. Wei Shiqing seemed to recall something as he immediately picked up the call and said, Is there anything you need from me, Minister Tang? Tang Min's voice came out. Director Wei, there's something I need to trouble you with. My nephew, Tan Xiao, is now outside your Virus Research Institute. He's a Chinese medicine practitioner from Star City Chinese Medical Hospital, and is also known as the young divine doctor of the new generation. I hope you can let him in and diagnose the patient's condition. Perhaps, with his ability, he can find out the problem of the virus and solve the illness. Upon hearing the name Tan Xiao again, Wei Shiqing's complexion suddenly drastically changed. He just felt that the name Tan Xiao was somewhat familiar, but never once did he expect that Tan Xiao turned out to be the Tang family's Tan Xiao. He had learned a lot about the Yao family's situation, and the main credit for it was Tan Xiao. He also knew that Tan Xiao was the young divine doctor of Star City Chinese Medical Hospital, but he just didn't think about it. In a flash, he immediately nodded and said, Please rest assured, Minister Tang. I'll immediately rush over and personally invite Mr. Tang in. Thank you, said Tang Min. After Wei Shiqing hung up the phone, he didn't even bother to take his coat as he grabbed his mobile phone and hurriedly rushed outside. The reason why he could have his current status and become the director of the National Virus Research Institute was partly because of his deep academic achievements, and also partly because of Tang Min. His wife was Tang Min's classmate in junior high school. When he was suppressed by other bigwigs, it was his wife who asked Tang Min for help, allowing him to safely get through the calamity. Hence, Tang Min was his benefactor, and her authority was much higher than his. At the outermost blockade line of the Virus Research Institute, Zhao Yundi raised his wrist and looked at the time on his watch. For minutes had passed since the 5 minutes Tan Xiao said. There wasn't even a shadow of a ghost inside, which made him secretly despise him. Buddy, it's almost time. There's only 1 minute left. I advise you not to be stubborn. Let's take advantage of the time not up and directly rush inside. No matter what the result is, we'll shoulder it together. What do you think? As the saying goes, haste makes waste. Tan Xiao said indifferently, haste makes waste. There's only 1 minute left. If Director Wei hasn't come out by then, I'll definitely rush inside with you. I think you won't give up until you reach the Yellow River. Zhao Yundi snorted coldly. Since you insist on waiting, then I really want to see if that surnamed Wei will. His words came to an abrupt halt halfway. With a flash of light, the off-road vehicle sped like the wind and stopped in front of everyone in just a few seconds. After Wei Shiqing hurriedly jumped down from the driver's seat, he glanced at the two groups of people confronting each other before his eyes finally fell on Tan Xiao. He remembered Tan Xiao's appearance, the most powerful and ruthless character of the Tang family in this generation. Furthermore, it was rumored that Tan Xiao had been wandering outside for 20 years and was only found by the Tang family this year. I'm really sorry, Mr. Tang. I didn't know it was you before, so I offended you. I hope you won't stoop to my level. Wei Shiqing's status was also very high, but at this moment, he put his position very low and spoke with an apologetic face. You're too polite, Director Wei. Tan Xiao let out a faint smile. I came here this time because I heard about the infectious disease. I hope I can help you. You're the young divine doctor of our country. I've long heard about your medical skills and moral character, said Wei Shiqing quickly. Now, all the experts in our institute are frowning and unable to study the source of the virus. I'm sure we can save a lot of people with your help. Although Zhao Yundi was shocked that Tan Xiao could make Wei Shiqing rush out in just 5 minutes with just a phone call, he immediately rolled his eyes and snorted after hearing the conversation between the two men. Hey, surnamed Wei, I didn't expect that a director like you would also flatter others. How old is this guy? Young divine doctor? What a joke. Tan Xiao looked at Zhao Yundi with a faint smile. Was this guy looking for a slap on his face? Sure enough. An angry look appeared on Wei Shiqing's face after hearing Zhao Yundi's words. Even though he was afraid of Zhao Yundi's identity, he still snapped. Zhao Yundi, I've called your grandpa. I think he'll send someone to take you back soon. How can you know Divine Dr. Tang's identity? Take these people you brought and leave quickly. Else, even the Zhao family won't be able to protect you if this matter blows up. Zhao Yundi was furious. He grabbed a pistol and pointed it at Wei Shiqing as he angrily shouted, Surnamed Wei, don't be so shameless. I must take my sister back today, else I'll tear down your virus research institute. It's the end of the month, please give me a monthly ticket. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.